Alrighty, everybody. Yes, indeed, we are actually going to be watching some more videos. My voice is not as in danger as it was yesterday, but I still think this is more fun. And I also do want to compare numbers from a weekday to a weekend. Let's see what do we have up for shopping block today. All right, we've got Kirsha. We need a new definition of death. Meat Canyon's new video. The streamer's never wrong with our best friend Pirate Software. Are Marvel movies actually dying from Moist Critical? And what is the lore on Penguin Zero? Penguins Zero? I don't know what the lore is there. Why they're there. And then Super Determinism, Why Are Physics Scared of It? With Sabine Hassenfelder from Alex O'Connor, Cosmic Skeptic, who I think we'll probably end up ending on this just because it's an hour-long video and there will be a lot to talk about there. But first, let's start off with Fox Girl and see what's going down.
Donor organs are too rare. We need a new definition of death. I don't like whoever's running the New York Times because they just seem like not human. And I thought this was funny that this was an article done by an Indian guy. It looks like two Indian people and whoever Dean Smith is. People die in many ways, but in medicine there are only two reasons a person can be declared dead. Either the heart has stopped or the brain has...
That's bad punctuation. If you're putting a colon in there, you do not need to capitalize the next word. It's not a new sentence. It's a... Yeah, I mean, unless I'm just not seeing it, if that's a colon or a semicolon, you do not need to capitalize that letter. New York Times, I think you need a new editor. Hire me, I'll do it.
Even if the heart is still beating. A person may serve as an organ donor only after being declared dead. Until then, transplant surgeons are not allowed even to interact with a dying patient.
Good. They shouldn't be, right? Because to be honest, if that's going to do anything, that's going to turn them off of, like, donating their organs. Like, hey, you've got a lot of, like, nice organs we would really love to give to some people. Do you think maybe you'd be okay with doing something about that? Like, if the doctor walks out of the room, we give you the override code for your morphine drip. You just, press the button up until, maybe those organs can go to somebody who could use them. Maybe, do you think that's good? Yeah. Obviously. Come on.
This commonsensical rule underpins organ donation in the United States and many other countries.
Okay, that's why it's a bad thing.
Most donor organs today are obtained after brain death, defined by most state laws as a condition of permanent unconsciousness, with no spontaneous breathing, no response to pain, and no primitive reflexes. In other words, devastation of the whole brain. Organs obtained this way are often relatively healthy because brain-dead patients can continue to circulate blood and oxygen.
Yeah.
Brain death is rare, though, and in New York State, with a population of 20 million, there are on average fewer than 500 cases suitable for organ procurement and transplantation each year. Far more often, people die because their heart has permanently stopped beating, which is known as circulatory death. However, precisely because the blood has stopped circulating, organs from people who die this way are often damaged and unsuited for transplantation.
Yeah, like I'm in a horrible motorcycle accident and my heart was impaled with a girder. Yeah, it probably hit some other stuff. Like your lungs are probably torn up. I would imagine your stomach. And then, because your stomach's torn up, all of your, gastrointestinal fluids have, contaminated your liver and your kidneys and these types of things. So probably not a great deal.
Stop here for a second because I feel like I see the direction that this guy is going in.
Okay, I don't, so educate me.
And if somebody dies and they suffer either a heart death or a brain death, I feel like it is far less ethical to use machines to keep that person's body pumping than it would be to just grow organs in a lab.
Well, that's true.
And I understand the latter is going to take a lot more trial and error and have like a higher chance of failure because you're just
maybe. So see, here's the fun part. There's actually, I don't know how far they've come forward on this, but I remember years ago they're basically saying like, you know what the future of organ transplantation is it's not actually going to be we take an organ from like another human being and we just put it into your body straight up. Okay, because that has a lot of problems with it. You need immunosuppressants because that organ, even if it matches your blood type, matches as much of the markers as humanly possible, there's still immune issues with that. So you need to be on immunosuppressants. You need to be constantly looking at that stuff. That gives you a suppressed immune system, so you're more likely to get sick from other kinds of stuff. Blah 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 blah. It's a whole thing, right? The other option that people are talking about, which is the more sci-fi version, is like we're gonna grow an organ in a lab. We're gonna clone an organ in a lab. Now the thing is, we're like, I want to say nowhere close to that in terms of making like organs. Like real legitimate. Making a new liver, making a heart, especially these types of things. It's just like it's not happening, right? So the idea is we take a heart from a donor patient. Then we strip all of the cells that have like genetic information off of that heart. And they found a way to do this with like literally like dish soap. That was the only thing that actually worked. And you end up with this like crazy like I don't know if this was actually what it was, but it was literally like a gelatin heart. It was like a clear gelatin heart with like all the the ventricles and all the atrium, all that stuff was completely intact. It was crazy. And then they would go, okay, and then you would take donor cells. You would take cells from the person who wants to get this heart, and you put it on there so that it's genetically their heart, even though it's not theirs, because we can't make the like printing a heart is like super difficult. Like they can't do it. They were able to make like a valve, I think, but like that was it. And like that's not a whole organ. It's not even close. So I do wonder if like the ethical issues here are like, obviously, yeah, if we can grow just a straight up organ in a lab, or you can have like a good like cyborg heart or something like that, that's better. The whole organ transplant thing is a stopgap. It's the best that we can do. There's a lot of problems with it. It's not great. Anyway, let's just keep
growing new organs, but like I don't like the idea of underground areas and hospitals just filled with corpses being artificially pumped with blood to keep their organs alive. That seems wrong in a way. The need for donor organs is urgent. An estimated 15.
I mean, it really depends though. Like, are you actually philosophically opposed to the idea of, your physical form, the cage that you're in, being artificially like kept alive? Because like, all right, like obviously there's some religious people who would say like, okay, if your body is still alive to some degree, your soul is still inhabiting it, and therefore keeping you hooked up to machines and these types of things is trapping your soul. You want to be free of this mortal coil because you're dead. You're not able to live anymore. You're not able to do any of this kind of stuff anymore. So like doing anything that kind of inhibits that is a bad deal, and you don't want to do it. I do understand that philosophically. However, I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's much more of like a consciousness thing. And therefore, like if your consciousness is freed because like your brain is dead, then you've kind of already left this shell. Of course, I mean, who knows? That's a weird, insane, like philosophical argument that no one can really answer that, because there probably is an answer or there isn't, and you can't know it unless you're dead and gone, and you can look at the world through a weird objective prism. But I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously the idea of there just being a giant ward of the hospital that has like dead, you know, quote unquote undead people in there. Trent, good morning. Good morning, how's it going? We're talking about keeping people alive to harvest their organs. What's your opinion on that? Yeah, so I mean, just having a huge giant ward of like, you know, undead organ sacks is super like disgusting as an idea. But I'm also like, dude, there's so many horrible things that happen in medicine that are just like taken for granted because it's you know, the place we're at in medicine is like super cool and advanced in some respects, but also like super barbaric and like barely out of, you know, the Victorian era and others. We've got all these like really cool techniques and these things like, yeah, okay, but we still need to like, you know, use a hammer to, you know, smash down onto like a knee bone to like release some like thing to replace their ACL or something like that. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. So we're in like a weird spot. Obviously, once things get like, once you have all the options available to you, then you can actually make like the philosophical, moral arguments. Oh, I've been subbed you. I watched your ASMR political videos. Thanks. I have not done ASMR recently. I'm trying to figure out what works for me. So we're, you know, this year, I guess, has been kind of a weird thing where we're doing more normal videos, even though whenever I rewatch my videos, I'm just like inherently doing soft-spoken. It's not intentional. This is apparently just my voice when I'm recording. But yeah, we're doing this stuff now. And yeah, I'm trying to get on other stuff. It's not to say I will never go back to it. In fact, if anything, I kind of probably should. Because that's kind of killing my channel. But, it is what it is.
People die in this country every day waiting for a transplant. We need to figure out how to obtain more healthy organs from donors while maintaining strict ethical standards. Well, an estimated 15 people die waiting for a transplant. But in New York State, there's fewer than 500 cases suitable for organ procurement. So that's still, let's say, roughly 500 cases. How many people are on the donor list and what are they waiting for, right? How many people per state is this number going to get up from? I feel like the harder part, right, isn't the availability of the organ, but the availability of an organ that matches the person that needs it, right? Because each individual person can only have so many other people that transplant organs to them that have a chance of not being completely fucking rejected by their body.
Yeah, that's right.
And also, if we go back to a story
let's see. Did you like Superman? I saw you talking about the trailer. You know what? I did actually like it. I think I made a video about it, but basically I was saying like, look, if it's anything that you think you might like, you should go see it. It's a fun movie. The James Gunn issues that I had with it were all there, and anytime that I had like a thought about the movie while I was watching it, it was a negative thought. It was like, oh, I don't like this. Oh, this is not that great. But I do think, like, I mean, overall, I came out of it and I was like, you know what? I liked it. I had a good time with it. I still don't like seeing movies in theaters, though. I will say that was the main concretized idea that came out of this, where I was like, no, I'd rather just watch movies at home. You know, I can lay down, fully recline, fall asleep, pause it when I want to. Don't have to worry about, you know, going to the bathroom and missing something. But it was it was a cool movie. I liked it.
Covered a few years ago in Korea, there was a businessman who needed some kind of transplant. I can't remember what it was. It might have been a heart transplant. I don't think it was, because I feel like, you know, I don't think it was. But there was some business guy. Oh God, I'm gonna have to look it up because I don't like having wrong information. Hold on. A woman in her 50s was fined by a district court in Korea after promising to donate part of her liver to a company chairman in exchange for a job for her son. The promised liver transplant didn't take place because the woman contracted COVID-19 shortly before the operation. The chairman of the construction company, who was supposed to receive the liver transplant, has since died. On Tuesday, Park Jong-gil, a judge in the Seoul Central District Court's Criminal Division, ordered the woman to pay a fine of 3 million won, which is about 2,000.
7 stones? Stones. Yes. I have no idea what the conversion for stones is. But yeah, I lost like 100 pounds. It took a while and I had 100 pounds to lose, but yeah, I did.
$1,300 for violating the Organ Transplant Act. This past February, Miss K heard from a friend that the chairman of a sizable construction company was seriously ill and needed a liver transplant. The friend connected her with an employee at the company in question, identified as Mr. N, who was the source of the information. Mr. N had gone to school with the company president, the son of the chairman, who needed a liver transplant. In a meeting with Mr. N, Miss K said that she was willing to donate her liver in exchange for 100.
Okay, generally speaking, nowadays, I mean, maybe not in South Korea. I feel like South Korea is fairly advanced in medicine and stuff. You don't have to donate your whole liver. You can do like a partial lobe transfer. I lost 75 pounds. I used to be 250. I'm 175. Now I feel a lot better. You know what the funny part is? I don't really feel any different. Yeah, I was like 276. Now I'm like 175, 176. So we're about the same. Yeah, I don't really feel any different, but I mean, I will say I do now catch myself looking in the mirror and being like, wow, okay, I actually lost weight all of a sudden. I don't know why. You know, because like I haven't lost significant weight otherwise. You know, like I've lost like maybe the last 5 pounds in the last couple months. And for whatever reason, I was just like, okay, I finally caught myself looking, which is weird.
100 million won
Never done it before.
And a job for her son at the construction company. The chairman's son agreed to those terms. On March 7th, Miss K entered a hospital in Seoul to be tested prior to the organ transfer. She pretended to be the daughter-in-law of the chairman who was supposed to receive the transplant. A week later, Miss K was approved as an organ donor by the National Institute of Organ.
Congrats on losing 75 pounds, by the way.
Tissue and blood management. But after being admitted to the hospital for the transplant, she was diagnosed with COVID-19, which caused the operation to be delayed. As Miss K's hospital stay dragged on, a nurse found Miss K's relationship with her caregivers suspicious and reported her to the relevant bodies for organ trafficking. And as a result, her surgery was canceled. While the investigation and trial were underway, the construction company chairman, who had been waiting for the liver transplant, eventually passed away in July. So I feel like this should have been allowed to go through.
Yeah.
If you are an individual and you
yeah, your organs are... What's your body fat percentage? Dude, I have no clue. I've never looked it up. Yeah, I've no idea. I used to have a scale that like read that, but apparently those scales are super insanely inaccurate. But yeah, I have no idea. I've never looked it up. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think it is this weird thing where it's like, I'm kind of like a crazy libertarian in this idea of, yeah, you should be able to sell your organs, you know, like you should be able to sell your organs if you want to, you know, obviously you need to be well aware of the, you know, the issues with it, like, you know, how much it's going to affect your life in the interim, you know, it might shave years and years off your life, but, you know, if you want to sell a kidney or do, again, like a partial lobe liver transplant, or even like, you know, like donate like part of your lung or something like that, you should be able to do it, you know, even if it does hurt you, for some cash. Because people want them, people need them. They are, you know, resources that you've got. I think I kind of think you should be able to, but I understand why people get, you know, squicked out about it. How tall are you? 5'9".
Make an agreement with another adult individual.
Yeah.
I don't see the issue here.
I don't.
You know, like I get that some people could potentially be taken advantage of in this case.
Yeah.
But you could also probably just make some kind of, like, there have to be contracts when you
there's
make
laws
these,
and stuff.
maybe,
There's absolutely a framework you could establish for
Absolute insanity. A life for 77K. The fact that the guy died is what has me mostly... Like, yeah, organ donor lists, you sit on that shit for a long time, man.
You can.
And I don't really see the issue with two adults making this arrangement if they're not coerced into it.
Yeah.
True.
I mean, I suppose the issue is, like, you know, especially in these kind of countries, I mean, like, South Korea is not necessarily the best example, but doing something like, you know, like, this person's really super poor, so, hey, you know, we found out this person's you know, like an organ donor match with this person who's super mega rich. I can offer you, you know, like $5,000 and hold you over a barrel and then, you know, get you to donate your organs and these types of things. Um, but I mean, yeah, I feel like there's ways you could do it. There's definitely like things you could structure legally to make sure that, you know, these things went correctly. And it's not, I mean, it depends on where you're at, but I mean, I don't think it's impossible for people that are rich to like move up the list a little bit if they want to, even if it is just like those like super rich people can be on like multiple different organ donation center lists. So it's like, hey, I'm in, you know, I'm on the list in California at this, you know, liver transplant place. I'm in Chicago, I'm in New York, I'm in, you know, Austin, I'm in all of these big, giant, huge population centers, and I'm on all of those lists. And if there is one, you know, available, I can get on my private jet, fly there immediately, and that, you know, increases your chances because you're drawing from a bigger pool. Even if you're not necessarily like rigging the system, you are, you know, using your money to give yourself a better chance to get that organ on that list. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's not true. Maybe you have to be locked into one specific thing. And I guess a lot of it also has to do with the idea of fairness. The idea of like, hey, these are super hot commodities. They represent, you know, a life-saving opportunity. We're only going to give them to people who can really benefit from them, and we're going to give them out totally objectively. We're going to give them out, you know, either randomly through a lottery if, you know, everybody is tied for like their organ donation scores. We're going to give them out through a lottery, totally randomly. We're not making any judgment whatsoever, or we're doing it purely, totally, completely objectively, only through, you know, these perfectly fantastic guidelines. Which is just like, you know, it's kind of difficult to do. And obviously everyone even thinks they're kind of like rigged to some degree. You know, those dark web horror stories on YouTube, they're so fake. Yeah, I don't see them a lot. And then you still use Twitch. It sucks, doesn't it? I don't use Twitch at all. I actually find Twitch to be much easier to set up in terms of like going live on a stream, or at least I did. Maybe it sucks now. But I remember it being way easier to set up than YouTube. Could also just be because I'm more used to it. But absolutely, it's terrible in terms of like getting any kind of discoverability, growing in any way, shape, or form. I was on there for like 6 months. I got like nothing out of it. It was a complete waste of time. It was very annoying.
Her lying about her relationship is inherently suspicious. She probably had to lie about it because if they found out that they had this arrangement, which they did, they would cancel the surgery and the guy would die, which is what happened.
Yeah.
The need for donor organs is urgent. An estimated 15 people die in this country every day waiting for a transplant. We need to figure out how to obtain more healthy organs from donors while maintaining strict ethical standards. New technology.
No. I mean, like, if you can get more organs, then great. If there's a strategy that you can utilize to get more healthy organs while maintaining strict ethical standards, great. But that means that you're tapping into a pool that, you know, you missed beforehand. You need to, you'd like to, but trying to push for that stuff is not necessarily something that you need to do. What you need to do is understand that people are mortal, everyone's going to die eventually, except for me. But everyone else is going to die eventually. And you need to be okay with that. We live in a world that's so, like, easy to survive in. We're not faced with the constant daily threat of death and annihilation that the vast majority of our species encountered on, again, a daily basis for the vast majority of the existence of the human species. And therefore, we kind of had a good idea. It's like, yeah, every day you go outside, you get hit by a bus. People say that all the time. Okay, 200 years ago, that was very true and very felt. That was a very, like, completely understood, lived experience. Like, yeah, no, you can absolutely go outside and, catch a flu and die. Have a good one. I gotta go to work. Good luck. I hope it's a good day.
Technologies can help, but the best solution, we believe, is legal. We need to broaden the definition of death.
Thanks for stopping in.
Now, I'm not a genius here, but I think my idea of consensual adults deciding, hey, you got $77,000, I got a working liver, I can give you a bit of my liver for your $77,000, let's sign a contract, brother. I feel like that's a lot more ethical than
going libertarian.
The definition of death.
Fox girl libertarian.
But I'm just a cartoon fox.
Libertarians.
Consider how things currently work. In the procedure known as donation after circulatory death, a typical donor is in an irreversible coma from, say, a drug overdose or a massive cerebral hemorrhage, and the heart is beating only because of life support. The donor is still not legally brain dead. He or she might have, say, a gag reflex or other primitive functions.
Yeah.
In such cases, with the blessing of the family, a donor is brought into...
I mean, again, yeah, okay, I guess maybe we need a new definition of death. That's probably true, and I feel like we could probably measure some stuff. And I mean, before we even get into this, obviously, I'm imagining they're gonna, look at this stuff. You could probably get, like, a brain scan. You could probably do a pretty good brain scan and determine, okay, what is the, consciousness residing part of the human brain? What is the cutoff threshold for brain activity in that, like, the prefrontal cortex, that determines, okay, this person is, non-conscious, not just unconscious because they're, sleeping or something like that. Like, because there's still, you still have brain activity in that manner, but this person has, like, no prefrontal cortex activity whatsoever. And we could even, look at the structural issues here. They've got, huge giant atrophy in that area because the blood flow is cut off to it, blah, 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 blah. And we can determine, okay, this person is, going to be brain dead, or this person is going to be essentially, non-conscious. And that would be, I think, probably what they're going for, hopefully.
Into an operating room, and life support is carefully withdrawn. If, as is expected, the removal of life support results in the stoppage of the heart, surgeons will wait long enough to determine that the stoppage is permanent, to be confident of death, but not so long that vital organs get damaged. This period is typically about 5 minutes, and then the surgeons remove the organs. And this is why it's important to have a will written with specific clauses in it, right?
Yeah.
Like, my aunt that died earlier this year, she had a specific do not resuscitate clause. So when she flatlined, even though she could be brought back and she would probably be fine, they chose to not because she had the DNR. But even a few minutes of a stopped heart often results in damage to the organs. This deprives potential recipients of healthy organs and thwarts the wishes of donors to have their organs used to help others.
Okay, hang on. Life support. Generally speaking, I don't think life support keeping your heart beating? Is that what it is? Generally, I mean, I guess... I mean, they have, like, heart pumps. They have, like, things that can circulate your blood for you. They do it all the time. I mean, obviously, like, how do you think your body survives if you're having a heart transplant? They take your heart out of the equation. The heart is the pump that's moving blood throughout your whole body. They hook you up to a machine that does that. So I would imagine they could do that, right? Maybe they're really expensive. I can't.
Fortunately, there's a relatively new method that can improve the efficacy of donation after circulatory death. In this procedure, which is called normothermic regional perfusion, doctors take an irreversibly comatose donor off life support long enough to determine that the heart has stopped beating permanently. But then the donor is placed on a machine that circulates oxygen-rich blood through the body to preserve organ function. Donor organs obtained through this procedure, which is used widely in Europe and increasingly in the United States, tend to be much healthier.
Okay, now we're getting into something I can actually talk about here. The difference between medical treatment in Europe and America. You know why Europe has, you know why whenever they're talking about these like new medical devices or these things, oh, they're used wisely in Europe and Asia. It's because the FDA is such a son of a bitch about new medical devices and these things. It takes years and like a huge amount of money for new things to be approved through the FDA. It's disgusting. So much so that like dialysis machines specifically, they are like 6 generations behind what's used in Europe and Asia. If you're in like, if you're getting like the good stuff, which a lot of places aren't because they have like, socialized medicine. So they're not getting like the best of the best until they're like running out and they have to. But eventually they will get like, a machine, and the new machine is like a brand new machine. It's like, hey, yeah, this thing was invented. All the mechanics in it were redesigned. They're super efficient, super effective. They do really well. 2 years ago, we are using ones in the US that are like 40 years old. Like all of the internals, all of that kind of stuff are like 30, 40 years old. It's ridiculous. And the reason why is because it's not that the company doesn't have the new designs. It's not that they haven't, they're not spending money on R&D. No, they did it. It's the same company that's making those new machines in Europe and Asia. It's just that it takes so long to go through the regulatory process that by the time that one got approved, they would be 2-3 generations behind anyway. So we end up with like this kind of bullcrap. So I mean, yeah, this is an issue of like overregulation.
Here, I think this is creepy.
Really?
I think it's creepy to have a person be completely dead, but you're pumping their body full of blood to keep things circulating, to preserve their organs, to give to other people.
I get it. It's just mechanical,
I think that's kind of weird. And it's also interesting. It's also interesting to read this. And in the effort to explain how this guy wants to use people's corpses, because that's what they are, let's be real. He wants to use people's corpses as like living bio organ farms. He makes the distinction between the donor and the body, which is again interesting because typically you don't bring the metaphysical into like scientific literature, especially in like healthcare stuff, right?
Yeah, they try not to.
Like everything based on medical science is based on physical reality. You don't talk about the metaphysical in regards to like the personality and the soul. But this guy is making a distinction between the donor and the body. So would the donor be the personality that is imprinted into the brain, and once the donor no longer exists, that body then becomes property of the hospital? But if we're talking about souls and we're getting into that kind of aspect of things, wouldn't that kind of need, I guess, more explanation in other areas of the medical field as well? But by artificially circulating blood and oxygen, the procedure can reanimate a lifeless heart. Some doctors and ethicists find the procedure objectionable because in reversing the stoppage of the heart, it seems to nullify the reason the donor was declared dead in the first place. Is the donor no longer dead, they wonder? Proponents of the procedure reply that the resumption of the heartbeat should not be considered resuscitation. The donor still has no independent functioning.
I've always thought that just like the beating of your heart being alive and not beating of your heart being dead is just a completely incredibly stupid version of death. I just think it's incredibly, because again, that means that anytime you go through any like organ transplant or any kind of anything, any kind of surgery, any kind of procedure that stops your heart in any way, shape, or form, and they put you on, you know, like a plasmapheresis machine or whatever that's going to, you know, circulate your blood for you, you're dead. You're dead the whole time. So if you need to get like, you know, like a little bit of your heart repaired, you're dead. You're dead the whole time that's happening, because they have to stop your heart to do it. They have to stop your heart to, you know, perform that surgery, because otherwise it's beating like crazy. They have to stop your heart, and then they restart it. So then you're dead the whole time because your heart's not beating. Yeah, I understand why they do it. It's because it's an easy to measure thing, but it has no bearing on whether or not you're dead or alive.
Nor is there any hope of it. They say that it is not the donor, but rather regions of the body that have been revived. Okay, so again, we're making even further distinctions once again, that the donor, the soul, the personality, the person who was imprinted and in charge of moving the flesh puppet is no longer there. This is merely a body that the donor has decided they want to have used for science. I don't know, this brings up like a weird little ethical conundrum here. How to resolve this debate? The solution, we believe, is to broaden the definition of brain death to include irreversibly comatose patients on life support. Using this definition, these patients would be legally dead regardless of whether a machine restored the beating of their heart.
Okay.
That sounds...
Now, we believe the people writing this, I'm assuming the people writing this are not medical professionals. And therefore, I don't give a crap about what you think is the solution, all right? I would like some medical professionals and or medical ethicists, you know, philosophers, to be doing this. I don't care if a journalist says, we think we should be doing this. Nah, that's great. Report the news. Shut up and type.
Evil. That doesn't sound right to me. This is awfully reminiscent of the clump of cells argument for abortion. And I mean, like, I also get it. You can't really make advances in science sometimes without doing incredibly unethical things.
Yeah, weird stuff.
I mean, what, we only know exactly how much water there is in the human body because of Unit 731 and how the Japanese would take prisoners and then weigh them and then bake them to death and then weigh them afterwards, right? Like, sometimes you only get advancement through suffering, and I hate thinking about that.
Not a great example,
choose not to. Thank you, woman brain. Apart from increased organ availability, there's also a philosophical reason for wanting to broaden the definition of brain death. The brain functions that matter most to life are those such as consciousness, memory, intention, desire. Once those higher brain functions are irreversibly gone, is it not fair to say that a person, as opposed to a body, has ceased to exist? See, I think it is weird, right?
You're pushing, but I get it.
In utero, when you are a fetus, if you have something that would irreparably hamper you from living a life, right? Like if you get born with like multiple limbs, or like you're hard on the outside of your body, or you have like a horrid disfigurement that makes you look like a 2-foot tall alien that can't grow hair or something, right? Just like crazy birth defects and horrendous handicaps born. Gene editing could make it so you're not born that way, and you could live a fully functional life.
In sci-fi.
In my opinion, if I, as a woman, were to go through with giving birth to a baby that would not be able to have higher functions, such as their own consciousness, their ability to remember things, having intentions, having desires, being able to be loved, I would feel like a monster for giving birth to that child who will know nothing but suffering in their life.
Okay. This is an interesting one because I don't know if they know suffering. we certainly would look at them and we go, that would be a horrible existence. And it would be a horrible existence if I went from me now to that. The transition to that would be horrible. But also, if I'm in that state afterwards, I don't know if I'd be aware of what I lost. You know? Like, it's a horrible idea to imagine, because you can imagine losing it and you can imagine being aware of losing it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you would actually, like, once that happens, if you have some horrible, like, brain disease, or, like, you get blown up, whatever, you would actually, like, be in a state of, like, legitimate suffering. Other people would almost certainly view you that way, but I don't know if you actually are suffering.
But on the flip side, when you have a person who has inhabited their body for whoever knows how many years, whether it's 7 years, 18 years, 20 years, 50 years, however old, like, they are a person. They have become a person. They were a person with consciousness and memory and intention and desire, as this function says. When they die, I still think they have ownership over their body, even though their consciousness is no longer here. So it would be really weird to then take their body as a ward of the state to use as an organ farm. There's, I feel like, a reason.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I would actually like to ask her this. If you're dead, do you still have ownership over your body? There's a lot of legal precedent that would probably say yes, because you have a will. A will is basically saying, hey, look, this is my intention for my body afterwards. And there are legally binding, clauses in there and contracts and blah, 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 blah. You do, yes, I mean, I think legally we would say you definitely do. But let's say ghosts are real. Let's say ghosts are real. Let's say, there's an afterlife and blah, 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 blah. And therefore we get some degree of ability to contact the other side, and we can ask these people, hey, after they're dead, what do you want to do with this body? Are we then legally obligated to do that every time we have some kind of, like, all right, well, now what do you want to do? Are you buried? Are you, like, you want to be buried? Yeah, I want to be buried. And I was like, okay, well, what if, 200 years down the line, we figure out, like, a new way to, like, reanimate corpse, whatever, do we then have to contact those people and exhume those bodies and then, like, set them up for this new, corpse, whatever, reanimation thing? I don't know. I mean, we do, though. I mean, I will say, I guess we generally have agreed that, even when you are dead, the person who is dead still has ownership over that body, unless they relinquish it. But then, of course, that also means that, they then have ownership over, those organs that go on, because it's their, I mean, it's their organ. So if their heart goes into someone else's body, if ghosts are real, those ghosts can come out and go, no. I don't want that person getting my heart.
Why every single culture, no matter how advanced they were at any point in time, always had some sort of rules about desecration. Even cultures that practiced, like, barbaric human sacrifice rituals tended to have things revolving around desecration. Understandably, some will worry that doctors will prematurely pronounce a patient irreversibly comatose, when in fact the patient is not, or there is genuine hope for recovery. This is rare, but it can happen, as recently documented by The Times. Is this going to be the guy? A push for more organ transplants is putting donors at risk. No. I thought this was going to be a link to the article of the guy who, like, they thought was dead, and they were about to start ripping his organs out, and then he woke up on the operating table. And they were like, oh, fuck,
that is rough. That's happened.
Take your organs now.
Yeah, that's bad.
That sort of concern, however, is about practicality, such as whether doctors are following protocol properly, and whether external pressures are creating perverse incentives for doctors and other medical workers to be careless.
Which is a serious problem.
I think there's enough doctors who, I wouldn't even say careless. I just think they're, let's say, weird. There's enough doctors that I would not trust them to put in practice not killing people for the sake of using their body as an organ farm. These are critical issues, to be sure, but it remains possible and common to responsibly determine whether someone is irreversibly comatose. And in such cases, a judgment of brain death is merited, as the law should be revised to reflect. In 1968, a committee of doctors and ethicists at Harvard came up with a definition of brain death, the same basic definition most states use today. In its initial report, the committee noted that there is a great need for the tissues and organs of the hopelessly comatose in order to restore to health those who are still salvageable. So I want to point out that Harvard has been a shitty place for a while.
Yeah.
And that it seems insane to me that they would refer to people in better health as just still salvageable.
Yeah. Not great.
That's a little crazy wording, man. Reminder that by profession, doctors joined the Nazi Party in greater proportion than any other career. Oh my god. This frank assessment was edited out of the final report because of a reviewer's objection. But it is one that should guide death and organ policy today. And it's like, maybe this is where, like, I am incorrect because I'm in my feelings in the same way that some people would, like, just object to any kind of gene editing whatsoever. Right? This could be where, like, I'm on the side of, like, I'm erring on too much caution. I don't know, but I don't think this is ethical, and I don't think you should keep people alive in order to harvest their organs after they've been brain dead or their heart has stopped. I think that's a weird thing to do with the bodies. And like this kind of goes back into I guess our conversation of sometimes unethical things might have to be done in order to advance science, but I can't really see what
It's interesting. Okay, so I mean, I think, like, you could probably solve that if you were able to basically, like, if this is an option, maybe then it is a good idea to have transplant people talking to, you know, patients that are in, you know, these things. Now, obviously, I mean, I guess, why would they be talking to these patients? Because you don't know who's going to die. You never know who's going to die, and generally speaking, the people who get organs donated are already, like, dead or dying. Like, they're all, like, you know, like they had a, you know, a fentanyl overdose or something like that, and therefore they're coming to the hospital unconscious. Like, there's no conversation that could be had. I guess if you had one, yeah, like, if you could have one, if there's somebody who comes in, they are an organ donor, it's already on their stuff, we already know that, and it's like, hey, they are going to die. If you could then get a transplant person to come in and say, look, here are your options. Obviously, you are an organ donor. We're not going to, and I mean, you know, this is sort of paramount, but, like, you know, we're not going to kill you, okay? But if you die, we're going to try everything we can to make sure that you stay alive. But if you end up dying and you want your organs harvested, here's one thing we can do. Once you pass, we can hook up your body and we can, you know, do this, you know, ECMO, blah, 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 you know, pump the blood through you like we would if your heart had stopped during a heart transplant or something. That gives us better organs to harvest. And therefore, we're more able to save people's lives with those organs, which is a good thing. And you sign up for that. And you're a real brave, wonderful soul for doing that. Very generous of you. However, I mean, I just feel like that's not going to happen. Again, I mean, I think this article is kind of just, it's a fun article, but it also is, like, lost in the weeds. It's, like, in one sense, super, super technical. And in another sense, it's, like, missing the reality of, like, okay, how do these organs actually usually come about being harvested? You know, there's usually not the possibility of having a conversation. If there is, I mean, yeah, that's probably not a great move, where it's like, you know, the transplant people can't even talk to anybody. Like, that's just, like, outlawed. That's probably not the best thing. I understand that it's, like, it's super creepy and would be super disturbing if somebody came in and was like, hey, we would love to grab your organs. Yeah, that's going to be super disturbing and gross. But, I mean, that's kind of the only option here to, like, rectify the situation and make it any better. What do you think, though? I don't know.
Besides, like, just using people as organ farms, and as we see setting up the, like, the maid kind of services and, like,
well, they
that
can't do it forever.
pod
this is the other side of it where it's like, I think Kirsten's kind of thinking of this like they would be able to be on these machines forever. That's not the case. Like they're not going to be on, you know, on these machines, keeping them alive indefinitely. They're only going to work for so long. They're really only going to work for like I think if you have a heart transplant and they stop your heart and they put you on these machines to circulate your blood for you, it only really like works for a couple hours, you know? Like I think like 4 hours, something like that, like something along those lines. And then it's just like, no, like then your organs, your capillaries, the blood vessels, all these things just get like blown out and it doesn't work anymore. Sort of the same way with like an intubation machine. Like, yeah, like if you're on an intubation machine for like too long, you're toast. Like your lungs don't come back from that. So, I mean, yeah. So I think she's thinking of this in like the most horrific dystopian way possible, and it's not necessarily the case that it would be that way.
Company that's getting sued in Switzerland or somewhere. I can't remember. We covered it last year. But like with all of these, you know, have you considered suicide as an option places?
That's rough.
And people they could potentially keep alive as organ farms even if they didn't consent to it? Like, I don't know. It rubs me the wrong way. It rubs me the wrong way, man.
Yeah, there's definitely that aspect of it where it's like, you know, yeah, like the people who are mentally unstable who would be doing that, who are taking care of like the, you know, assistance in dying type stuff, probably also not really like mentally fit to be making these decisions, unfortunately. All right, next one. Palate cleanser. Who's this guy? Is this our best friend Thor?
Yeah, Chad, so today I was supposedly cursed. I saw this woman breastfeeding her child in a non-optimal way.
Based.
So, being the kind man I am, I showed her how to do it correctly. I told her you should have the child latch at a 30-degree angle. That way, when her milk begins to extrude from the channel, it will flow more rapidly with the babe's suction, as followed. She got irrationally angry when I proved her wrong and put a curse on me. Not that I believe in curses or anything.
Of course not. I don't know, man.
The curse is real. Look at your legs.
I can barely feel it. Pain is actually an illusion played on by the mind that...
You fool! Don't you see your arrogance? Need I remind you that's what got us fired from Blizzard?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so I worked at Blizzard for 7 years. I barely think about it. It's actually funny, Chad. I'm considered the first second-generational hire at the company. Not that I even think about it.
You're not even streaming right now!
Oh my god.
I knew that. I knew that, and I was just practicing before I go live. It's the most optimal way a streamer stays fresh when...
Oh.
You can at least admit that telling a woman how to breastfeed her child was wrong.
Nah.
I would be willing to concede such an argument if it wasn't something I'm so well versed in. Explain. You see, a gypsy's breast is typically in the cup size of B to C, albeit small, and provides ample milk for her freshborn.
Your ego is going to kill us. Admit to yourself you can be wrong. For us.
No.
I can be wrong.
No, I don't think so.
But...
There you
I
go.
think a mother should breastfeed her child.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, that seems pretty accurate. Alrighty. Are Marvel movies actually dying? Are they? Are Marvel movies actually dying? Movies? They don't seem to be. I'm trying to think of any Marvel movie that's actually like lost money. Shang-Chi, maybe? Shang-Chi might have lost some money. Oh, you know what movie actually probably did lose money? The Brave New World, the Captain America, the Falcon, whatever we're gonna call that crap. I think that actually probably did lose money. Everything else, even like disgusting, like has actually probably at least broken even.
I had a piece of stubborn lip skin that I ripped off right before starting this recording, so my lip might bleed a little bit. Don't be concerned. That's just part of being 31 years old now. Even something as simple as taking a little bit of chapped lip skin off is enough to have me bleeding profusely, it seems. But you know what else is bleeding? Marvel at the box office. Now, this is a conversation in cinema that happens more frequently than people debating whether or not Sam and Frodo were gay.
They're not.
So many people since the end of Endgame have talked about how Marvel is dead and dying, and that superhero fatigue had finally reached its molten core where everyone was done with MCU and how bad the quality was. But despite all of that hoopla, pretty much all of the MCU projects did decently well for the most part, like even unanimous.
Although I will say, you know what? Let's think about the Disney stuff, like the Disney Plus stuff specifically. Disney Plus, I don't know how you would measure if it was successful or not, because obviously it's a subscription-based model, right? So unless you're losing subscribers, like She-Hulk comes out and we have a 20% drop off in subscribers because they're like, this is horrible, this is so bad, I'm repulsed by this to such a degree, I'm gonna like yeet my freaking subscription. Other than that, I don't know if you'd ever be able to tell if something was a success or a failure. You know, like we could maybe say like, hey, if this new project comes out, like Stranger Things season 4 comes out and we see a bump in Netflix subscriptions. Okay, yeah, we see that it's a big deal. Otherwise, I think the only like metric you would use is like how often is this stuff talked about in social media and stuff. That's kind of it, because like that's publicity, free publicity. Publicity is going to translate to subscriptions, and subscription is going to translate to money, because a lot of people are going to forget to unsubscribe when they're finished with it. They're just going to keep paying the bill. So I feel like the Disney Plus stuff, all of it, even like Andor and stuff, are probably like failures monetarily. But again, it's like it's a subscription service, so you kind of always have money coming in. I don't know.
Hated
I do wonder what their metrics are on that.
Quantumania still generated like $500 million, but the quality did significantly decline, and a lot of people were getting tired of it, and some of them did actually not do well, like the Marvels. But on the whole, the MCU was still fine in the box office, but it was showing signs of weakness.
Again, the amount of money that it brings in is not really relevant. The only thing that actually matters is whether or not it's, you know, how it did profit-wise. The amount of it could have brought in $10 billion. If it cost $20 billion to make, you lost money. Okay. Oh my God, this is the most record-breaking thing ever. It's worth $10 billion. I was like, yeah, well, you spent $20 billion marketing it. So obviously that's why it made crazy amounts of money. I do think most of them kind of probably barely broke even, though.
Now, they've released 2 decent movies back-to-back, Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four.
Thunderbolts was decent?
They're not exactly doing the billion-dollar nut-busting that the MCU was known for. Fantastic Four is experiencing a 80% drop from its debut, so going into its second week here, it has declined significantly.
Yeah, that's huge.
It had a great start, and it had incredibly strong word of mouth. but it doesn't seem like that's translating to asses in seats.
Yeah.
And Thunderbolts was the same thing. People saw it, they were surprised by how good it was, saying, you know, Marvel's fucking back, baby.
I've not heard that at all for Thunderbolts.
We are in it again.
No.
But then that also didn't have the strongest box office run, which is now leading to the bigger conversation that's been had a lot about the state of the MCU. Are people just tired of it? Is superhero fatigue really setting in now, finally? Or is it mainly just Marvel? Because Superman has done great in the box office. It has been fucking
It's not done great. It's done good, but it's also like, it's not Man of Steel. Like, I mean, that's what people are comparing it to. They're comparing it to Man of Steel. It's not doing as well as that. So, I mean, you know, like, it's doing okay. It's not seeing the same drop off Fantastic Four is. But yeah, it's not doing incredible. And also, it's a super expensive movie. It's a massively expensive movie. I don't know if it's on track to make its money back. I feel like it is.
Flapping in the box office. And it's a good movie.
There you
Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four are also good movies, especially in a sea of dog shit that Marvel had been farting out for quite a few years, with a few exceptions like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Yeah,
and now it's left a lot of people wondering, well, what the fuck's going on? Why are they not having strong box office performances when these are finally some decent films from Marvel again? And to be fair, I think it's a little overblown with Fantastic Four flopping and all of that with that narrative that's being spun. It's still at $370 million worldwide in its second weekend. That is still pretty solid, but against its budget and its marketing, it still needs to make like $450 million or something.
At least.
The reports I read. Same with the Thunderbolts. The Thunderbolts generated $380 million total across its lifespan in theaters, and it needed about $450 million for that break even. So like, it still does have a little ways to go, but it's not doing like dreadfully. Like, I don't think all the Marvel execs are in full force panic mode, sweating, contemplating sitting on a cactus or something.
I kind of feel like they might be.
It's all dried up and Marvel's dead. But
I think they kind of are. I'll be honest, I think they much more are worried about this than he's saying, because losing that amount of money is money that they don't have for projects going forward. And especially if they have multiple runs of these things, then like banks are not going to loan you money for, you know, your new project, because you've got a track record of losing. You got a track record of losing money. That's how studios die. Obviously, Disney is a weird one because they have their amusement parks to always buoy them, and they're always there to sort of like bail them out, and they can always use that as a, you know, as an asset that they can point to and say like, hey, we always make, you know, whatever huge amount of profit from, you know, our parks year on year, and we can use that as a, you know, loan tactic. But I would imagine they are actually probably sweating bullets, that their stuff's going to get canned, or at the very least, they're going to be like, no, man, we need to be pulling back on budgets hugely. We're going to be like, you know, $150 million tops for all movies going forward.
It is less than you would expect for some actually good Marvel movies. It's an interesting
Are they actually good though?
Topic,
I don't know.
Because again, this is a conversation that's been had a lot, but I had always just said, yeah, the films have gotten worse, but there's always going to be an audience for it. They're always going to make like over $500 million. Turns out that is not the case.
Yeah.
These are better movies than the ones that were coming before it and performing much better. But it really does seem like people are checking out. A lot of people are starting to view the MCU kind of like homework that you have to do, like prerequisite.
That's true. And no one wants to be watching these crappy Disney Plus shows to be ready for the movie. I mean, like, no one wants to do that. And I do think, you know, the quality of these movies is not even necessarily in question anymore. Like, we don't even really care. Like, that's what a lot of this is going for. It's not fatigue. It's just like, well, I mean, fatigue might be a good word for it. You know, it's just the apathy. The apathy for these projects now. We don't have the same, like, there was such a absolute, like, dearth of anything to do with comic books or superheroes, any kind of, like, really cool nerd stuff, that those people, like, if you threw them any kind of a crumb of something, they loved it. Even if it was like for more broad audiences, like Blade. Blade is a good example of this, where it's like, it's a good, like, don't get me wrong, I love Blade, but it's not really a super duper comic booky Blade movie. It's much more broadened out for like most people. Like, hey, like these vampires are, you know, like super normal evil vampires that we've seen before. And, you know, we're going to have kickboxing, we're going to have action, we're going to have, you know, all this kind of stuff that, again, is awesome. I do love. But it's not really made, you know, by and for nerds as like the second one. The second one, Blade 2, is like a lot more like that, which is why I think a lot of people like me kind of like it more. Even though most people would say like Blade 1 is better, it's because it's more for that broad generalized audience than Blade 2 is. Blade 2 is much more of a focused on, you know, the comic book nerd core, and the kind of stuff that we're seeing now is like not scratching that itch anymore, because it's been scratched raw. It's been just like, you know, there's such a glut of these things that now we can actually pick and choose and be like, yeah, you know what? Like, I actually don't have time to be watching all of these things because there's so many of them.
Reading and watching the shows beforehand and catch up on like 5 and 6 movies just to be able to go watch one of the films and understand or appreciate it. So a lot of people found that to be kind of tedious. And also, I think a lot of people were just tired of MCU in general, because they would release like 4 films a year, all of which were mediocre at best.
Oh, yeah.
And now they've finally got 2 like pretty strong films, but a lot of people just don't really care about the word of mouth. They're just kind of done with it, it seems. And to be honest, it's kind of hard to...
We've lost trust.
...blame them. I can totally see why. With so many superhero movies coming out, and a lot of them in the last 5 or so years being really underwhelming, why would you keep getting excited and seeing every single new one? You know what I mean? Even the ones that do get a lot of hype and glaze, it's hard to just want to go see that, because then you still have to wonder, will I even understand it? Because I didn't watch the last couple and I didn't watch any of the shows. And in Thunderbolt's case and Fantastic Four's case, you don't need to. You can go in them and entirely enjoy them by their own merit. They stand on their own 2 legs, especially Fantastic Four. It is all self-contained. So it sucks to see that it's not doing well, but it's not like I blame the general audience for not going and seeing it. There has been way too many underwhelming superhero films for them to just blindly trust that this is finally a good one, right? But I don't think it's like superheroes in general, because Superman is proving that there is still a huge appetite for superhero movies.
Is it? I think Superman succeeds not as a superhero movie or a Superman movie. I think it succeeds as like a Top Gun Maverick type movie, where it's like, it's a fun movie. It's a fun experience to go and see it. It's not, I don't think it's a particularly good Superman movie. I think it's perfectly good as a movie. And, you know, it's a fun movie. It's a fun time. And even that's like, you know, we're losing that because of the fact that, you know, every movie that comes out now is either some like Oscar bait, you know, art house, depressing movie, or it's this huge, giant, insane spectacle budget movie that's, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars, and therefore they can only make a couple of them a year. It's like, okay, all like at that point you're like, I mean, I'll just take fun, dude. Like anything that is at the least bit like entertaining and just is like a good time for 2 hours, I'll take it. I think Superman scratches that itch. It's not really it's not embracing this like insane, we want superheroes. It's just like, no, we wanted a fun movie, we got it with Superman, and that was enough.
I think it's just Marvel has been so sullied by their bad movies over the last few years that people are just kind of yawning at it. Which puts Marvel in a weird spot, because they finally had this come to Jesus moment and said, what if we made good movies? And then they fucking hoisted up the guy who suggested that like some kind of hero, you know? Like the big eureka moment, how about some good films? But they're not performing that well in the box office. So like it sucks to see that, and it's weird because now they do finally understand that they need to have quality films in order to stay competitive and stay generating unfathomable amounts of money, but the general audience has kind of turned their backs on them and don't really care to hop back into the Marvel train. So they have some good films, but now the audience isn't, ferociously starving to consume it anymore.
That's what happens. I mean, this is their fault. This is their fault. And I mean, it is this very real thing in entertainment, which is just, look, man, we're spending money to be entertained here. This is money that we could be spending on like real stuff. We could be saving for a car or, like a house payment or blah, 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 blah. If I'm going to be shelling out this stuff, I better be getting my money's worth. And if not, I'm not going to be wasting it in the future. And I'm going to be very protective of it if there's any hint of a possibility that I'm going to lose money, I'm just pissing this away, then I'm not even going to bother trying to spend it.
But they still have, of course, like the core community of like Marvel enthusiasts that are going to see every film they put out regardless.
That's not happening.
It's just now they're having a harder time reaching beyond that scope, even with extremely positive word of mouth. It definitely is a weird predicament for them to be in. I feel like they waited too long to finally start realizing we gotta try again. They can't just coast to a...
How many Marvel fans are there that are watching everything? I would absolutely say I was a Marvel core huge fan, and I am still, of everything before Endgame, but I'm not watching the Disney Plus. I didn't watch Deadpool and Wolverine. I'd like to watch it at some point, but I mean, I think the people that are watching everything are like people that are doing it for content. Like the people that are reviewing movies are going to see all the Marvel movies because they need to make a buck. I think that's it. I don't think there's anybody who's like a huge Marvel fan anymore in terms of like the MCU. I don't see it. And I think that reflects like your base is eroded out. You've destroyed it.
$1 billion every time. And I think the path going forward for Marvel isn't to fall back into old ways or something and make like really uninteresting, boring super slop, but instead continue with this focus of making things that are actually interesting and good, like Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, but find a way to do it without the extraordinarily bloated budget.
Yeah.
They are not going to be making as much money as they used to. Mm-hmm. They're going to need to find a way to deliver quality productions for a fraction of the cost. They can't just mindlessly dump hundreds of millions of dollars into every single Marvel everything these days. That time is behind us now. That is in the past. I think they need to start analyzing their budgets a little tighter and figuring out ways of being creative with it so they can deliver these same kind of movies that are strong but without eating a loss on them. Like Thunderbolts, that's a film that probably didn't need $450 million box office run to break even. You probably could have delivered that same level of film for less money, so that way the $380 that it did generate could have already been at your break even. Like I feel like there's definitely ways. Like I think these budgets are super overblown, which isn't specific, like exclusive to just Marvel. It's Hollywood in general.
Yeah.
Like that fucking Netflix stinker, Electric State, had a $300 million budget or something.
I mean, obviously inflation comes into play here with these huge giant numbers. They're definitely going to come into play, but for real, dude, like, I mean, I don't understand it that everyone is trying to like put this much money into things. Or do they I feel like they want to lose money. Like they're doing this to somehow like there's got to be some scam involved, because I don't think these people want to be betting $320 million on a movie. There's got to be like some back end scam of like, hey, we're going to put up this much money. We're going to have, I mean, I know the ESG stuff was happening for a while, and maybe that's what was happening. Because I mean, you figure what? Okay, took over the rights in 2022. So that was probably still, ESG was still money flowing. So you could, do it and be like, hey, we'll, even if we lose money on it, doesn't matter. we can claim this as a loss and get a tax break and that kind of stuff, which is ridiculous. But I do think these budgets are inflated to a degree that doesn't make sense.
Something, and that was abominable. Like, it really feels like there's some kind of fraudulent bookkeeping going on over there, some kind of fucking scam. But that's a topic I've already yapped about a lot. Point is, for Marvel now, they probably realize that the audience isn't just going to blindly eat everything that they feed them. They need to keep delivering good movies, but they need to find a way to make them for less money, so that way the box office runs don't need to be colossal, historic, record-breaking performances in order to generate any level of profit. Though, admittedly, I think there's a chance Marvel learns the opposite lesson, that people don't want good movies. Like, they'll turn to Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four and be like, well, we tried a quality approach, that didn't work, let's go back to quantity. That would be a real shame.
I mean,
there is a chance. Like, these zombies.
It's actually not a terrible idea. Like, getting quantity is actually not a terrible idea if they're like gonna be a little bit more creative with them, and they're like, hey, you know what? Instead of making $300 million movies every year, we'll make like 6 or 7, $50 to $100 million movies a year, and we can be like kind of creative and weird and take a chance on some of them. Because I'm sure there's some directors that would love to get into Marvel projects that would be able to do something like Vertigo did, where you're gonna take some new cool direction and you're gonna make like an Alan Moore Swamp Thing. You're gonna make a Grant Morrison Animal Man. You're gonna be making either of those things would be good moves. All right. Bloop. Alrighty, and back.
Look at these box offices and be like, this was a failure. This experiment didn't work. That guy that we hoisted up about, like, what if we made good movies? Time to fire him. Fucking throw him out that window. That was a terrible idea. We lost money on it. We're going to go back to quantity and just really generic, safe, boring slop. That's what the people want, clearly.
Yeah.
I'd hate to see that, but I think there is a chance. I can only hope they don't go that direction. But anyway, though, I wanted to just talk.
I think they might go back to the sort of like 90s, 2000s stuff, like the pre-Netflix subscription era stuff, which is we're going to make a bunch of movies and we're going to basically try to we're going to try to make a good how can we describe this? A good range of options for people, such that, going to the movie, like, I mean, I remember going to the movies was like a normal thing. You would do it like all the time.
About this a bit. I found it interesting to see Marvel is no longer like the guaranteed infinite money glitch juggernaut that it used to be. Though, of course, it is still making tons of money in the box office. It's not like it's just all
losing it, really.
It's just in a weird spot right now where it's not guaranteed success every time. Anyway, that's about it. So, yeah.
All right, that's not it for us. That is not it for us. Let's see. All right. Super determinism. Why are physicists scared of it? With Sabine Hossenfelder.
Physics begins with your book Existential Physics
there we go.
Begins with a mental health warning. Why did you put that in there?
Because I have gotten a lot of emails in response to what I've written and said about the absence of free will. So I think that we don't have free will, and it made me realize that some people find it hard to cope with, and they ask me, like, so what's the point of life if we don't have free will? To which I don't really have a good answer. So I wanted to put this out, at the beginning.
I've heard a lot of this very recently. Both people that are like neurologists and I guess physicists as well, that have been harping on this idea of like free will doesn't exist. We've done experiments to determine that free will doesn't exist. Dude, free will is immaterial. The idea of free will is inherently unscientific, non-scientific, and when I say that, I don't mean, oh man, there's no scientific evidence. No. I mean, it is something that is untestable via science. It is something that is unobservable. You can't make scientific inquiry into these things. And the progenitors of the scientific method, who I'm sorry to say are smarter than all of these people that are doing these things nowadays, guess what? They understood this. They looked at this and said, no. These are things outside of the purview of this area of inquiry. This is something that's like, this is still relegated to the idea of philosophy. We do have some stuff that we can learn about, a lot of it, via this scientific method, but not everything. Not everything is subject to, scientism. But I'm more interested to see it, but I do think this is going to be kind of like not really for me, because I'm still going to be like, no, you're impeding, you're impinging, there we go. You're impinging into the area of something that is outside of your jurisdiction.
It might, and personally, I found it very difficult. Like when I was a student, studied physics, so you get to the point where you're like, okay, so that's how everything works. Like this is like fundamentally, this is what we're all made up of, right? Atoms, and they do this thing, and so where's the space for free will? We can talk about this in more detail, but it's taken me some time to wrap my head around it and get comfortable with it. And so I wanted people to know what they are getting into, basically.
Yeah, I suppose there's an expectation sometimes on physicists or indeed philosophers who come up with these crazy ideas like free will doesn't exist, or there's no such thing as ethics, or questions about God or whatnot. And then people come to them and say, oh, so what should we do in light of that information? And it's like, well, how should I know? I'm just here to diagnose a problem or tell you something I think is true. It's up to you to figure out how to deal with that. But do you recognize, I mean, in the areas you...
I mean, look, dude, all I'm doing is pulling the pin on this grenade. I'm tossing it into a room. It's that's it. That's all I'm doing. It's up to you to deal with the consequences.
Touch on, as a physicist, you're talking about free will, you're talking about consciousness, you talk about God sometimes. Do you recognize the desperation in comments like that? Like when someone says to you, I'm having an existential crisis, do you say, I'm sorry to hear it, but, I don't relate to that? Or is that something that you also have sort of gone through, but just managed over time to deal with?
Well, yeah, I did go through it and I managed to deal with it. And no, I definitely don't ignore such comments because I'm kind of, I worry about people and I try to help them because, I mean, I kind of managed to make peace with it and I try to convey that to people, but still I don't know, does it actually work? Right? So that's why I worry. I understand why people might find it hard. Like what's the purpose of anything? What do I do? What do I do with my life? Why do anything? So I kind of feel like I'm a little bit the wrong person to talk about it, but I feel like I can't not do it, basically.
Yeah. Well, what are the principal areas? You already mentioned free will, which I think people can understand why not believing in free will would cause an existential crisis. But some people might be surprised to think, I thought that Alex's guest today was a physicist. And yet we've opened here by alluding to these existential problems, which are usually in the realm of philosophy. So what other areas can a physicist be writing about and touching on that get people to send you emails like that?
Okay. I mean, that I can see. There's definitely a lot of those types of things. But, I mean, I am still like, I'm glad he mentioned this. I'm glad Alex mentioned the idea that free will is usually relegated to the realm of philosophy. And that's because that's where it, actually can be examined and debated. I don't think any kind of science is going to be able to examine it in a way that's actually telling us about it, about the actual idea of free will. Like, you know, we could be doing stuff of like, okay, we can do like a psychological experiment that, you know, determines that, you know, people are not choosing based on their own individual motivations. They're choosing based on, you know, some outside set of circumstances, and they're algorithmically determining, you know, what choice they're going to make, blah, 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 blah. That type of stuff is like, okay, yeah, but that's not talking about free will. That's talking about like patterns of behavior. They're not the same thing. I know they look very similar, but they're not the same.
So one rather obvious question or topic that physicists like to talk about is the beginning of the universe, or the origin of everything, as some people would put it. And generally, like the question like, where is space for God? Anything beyond the fundamental laws of nature? There's also, and this has become much more widely discussed in the past 2 years with AI being everywhere. Is there anything special about consciousness? Or, I mean, this is the way that people put it, but I think what they really mean is there's something special about us. Right. And I mean, I think some people find this really, really important. Like there's something different about us that we can't build with a machine. And I just think there isn't. Basically, I think we're all machines in some sense, just made out of other stuff. And there's no reason why a computer shouldn't be able to become conscious. And I do think that physics has something to say about it, because, you know, fundamentally, we're all made of atoms.
Yeah. I mean, you have a whole chapter in your book. It's called something like "Are We All Just a Bunch of Atoms?" or something like this, which discusses this idea of what, if anything, makes human beings or sentient minds special.
Such a weird cabinet.
And yeah, I mean, it does feel as though there's me and there's, you know, this microphone that's sat in front of me, as I like to point to as an example all of the time. And well, what's the difference between them? Okay, the size, shape, and color, but it also seems like there's something that there is, like, what it's like to be me, in a way that there's not a what it's like to be the microphone. And that seems to have something to do with the internal first-person perspective, feelings, the fact that I can close my eyes and imagine things that the microphone doesn't have. So I've spoken to philosophers about this over and over again. You know, where does this consciousness thing come from? But from a physicist's perspective, if we are just talking about atoms bumping together, you can understand why people find it so difficult to imagine that if you throw out...
This is the funny part about this as well, which is like, I feel like the field of physics now is so specific, it's so like mathematically inclined, it's so mechanically specific, and therefore is going to draw people for whom that mechanical outlook of life is so just like inherently attractive. Like it just resonates with them. It just makes more sense to them, and therefore, you know, those are the only people that are able to do these like super insane calculations and these things. That you're going to be getting this insane skewing effect of like all of these physicists are going to be just like personality wise materialistic, and then you're going to go, okay, well, if that's the case, then, you know, you're going to get the people that are, and it's the same thing with like philosophy, where it's like, okay, philosophy is now so far into like the sort of the theoretical ephemera and these types of things, that you're always going to get people that are like just personality wise ephemeral, theoretical, crazy, you know, imaginative individuals. And therefore, like, trying to get these two individuals to talk is just like, they're speaking different languages.
Atoms together in the right order, you create a rock or a microphone or some water. Or if you put them together in the right order, then you get first-person conscious experience and imaginary rocks and imaginary numbers and all kinds of stuff like that. That just seems totally incomprehensible for some people.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so I want to start by saying that the German title of the book is Mehr als nur Atome, which means more than just atoms. So the point is, we're more than just atoms. So it's not just about the things that we're made of. It's about the way that they're connected. It's about what they can do, which is exactly what you just said, right? So the human brain can do more than your microphone. It's just much more complex. So that's the question, like, is this the only thing? Like, is this the only difference? That the human brain has just many more connections, many more things going on, and it has many more emergent features, as philosophers like to put it, than your microphone? And I think the answer is yes, that's it. It's at the moment, the human brain is much more complex than anything else we can think of. But it may not remain that way. And so a related argument that I bring up in the book is this question, like, do we actually need these atoms? Can we make it of something? Can we build consciousness from something else? So there's the question, like, do we actually need this particular biological substrate?
Oh yeah,
so to speak.
Right.
Is it somehow essential? And I think that physics tells us that the answer is no, because we know that the exact details of what's going on beyond a certain scale, at very short distances, actually don't matter for exactly how information is being sent around in the brain. It's got something to do with the way that things are connected. And that makes me think there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to reproduce this with some other system,
Okay. Well, what if we can't? What if we can't? What if we can't? Because, like, all right, yeah, hey, man, like, we should be able to do this. Okay. Well, then do it. Then we can have that discussion, because then we actually have something to talk about. Looking at this and saying these things in terms of, like, man, like, there's no reason we shouldn't be able to do this. Okay, but that doesn't mean that you can do it. And then, I mean, again, this is again harping on this thing of, like, disciplines of science now are so super specialized that, like, a physicist is not a biologist, is not a neurobiologist, is not a blah blah blah, is not a neuropsychiatrist, is not a psychological major, is blah 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 blah. And they're all, like, so super specific that I'm like, I'm sure if we were to talk, like, just straight physics with her, there'd be so many incredible mysteries that I wouldn't even understand. And I'm like, okay, well, there's just as many of those in physics as there are in, philosophy, neurology, in biology, and these types of things. And we can see very much so in one thing, and then we just, like, we use that incredible insight in one thing, and we go, okay, well, everything else has to be just like that. And it's like, that's not really true necessarily.
Be it silicon or whatever they now work with. I always, I always hear people talk of graphene, but it never seems to become reality. Yeah.
There you go.
So I totally think you can do it on some other system. That doesn't mean that we've actually managed to do it yet.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think for a lot of people, they sort of just have this confidence that one day we'll work out how that process would work. Yep. But if we could conceivably just put atoms together in the same way, there's that thought experiment of replacing every neuron in your brain with like a transistor or something, and if you just replaced one single neuron with a transistor or some kind of silicon, would you notice a difference? And the answer is like, no, I think everything would function the same and the brain would still act in the same way. And well, if you just kept doing that over and over again, at what point would consciousness switch off? It kind of seems like it wouldn't, right? But on the other hand, there is this feeling that, like, I mean, the question I always ask people is quite like visually laden, but a lot of people can't like visualize things in their head. I don't know if you're one of these people who can close your eyes and imagine the color red, for example. Some people say that they can't, some people can, but at the very least you can probably imagine a triangle, right, in your head if you think of it, and it's got three sides, and there are things that are true and there are false about
I do love this example of his. He uses it all the time, and it's so good, which is why I was really, really interested to watch this video. I was hoping he would bring this up because it's such a good encapsulation of the idea of consciousness, of the idea of conscious thought, and the idea of that, like, these things are real, even though they're immaterial. And the immaterial part of it is unobservable because it's immaterial. And therefore, it is outside the domain of science. So I'm so curious what she's going to say.
And so, is it your view that, say, this triangle that I'm picturing in my head right now just somehow, like, is the same thing as some kind of atomic structure within my brain? Because I think the dualist will think, no, that triangle exists in the mind because it's got spatial extension. It's got three sides, for example. Your brain, the atoms in your brain doesn't have those properties. So what's your view on that discussion? Like, what is this triangle? Where does it exist? How does it exist?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it an atomic structure because that makes it sound like it's some sort of material in your brain that you're assembling. Right. But it's something, something that's going on in the circuits in your brain is what I would say. Yeah. Actually, I think we don't even have to spec.
I think she's missing the point. He didn't go into it as much as he usually does. He didn't, I mean, that's his fault. I'll see if he does it again, but yeah, I kind of assumed this is going to be the case, that they're just kind of talking past each other. They're not really getting. He's not explaining the sort of super immaterial stuff, and she's super focused on the material stuff, and it's not coming together.
About this because people are now doing brain experiment, not my area, but where they can basically read out what images people are thinking of. And so I mean,
what is that thought made of?
At the time it's not great, but at some point we'll probably be able to do it.
Back to the show in just a moment, but first, do you trust the news? I don't, and a lot of that has got to do with the bias that inevitably seeks experience itself in philosophy. With that said, back to the show. Yeah, I see. And so, like, by looking at the brain structure, we'll be able to sort of see what it is that they're picturing in their heads, something like that, which at least shows an intimate connection between those two things. Yeah. But for me, I've always tripped up on this mystery of the line between, like, the mental activity associated with the experience and the experience itself. In philosophy, the experience itself, as separate from the mental activity, there's a word for it, they call it qualia, right? And you've just put out a video about how science might have something to say on qualia. It's often thought that that's kind of where the science-philosophy divide is with consciousness. Science deals with the brain, philosophy deals with qualia, but what is it that was, interesting enough about the relationship between science and qualia that made you think you need to make a video about it recently?
Yeah, so maybe let me say a more general thing. So I do these science news. I report on what other people do. So it's not that I did this research or something. And so what the video was about is that I see this trend of people working in neurobiology or neuro something who write papers about how they've measured qualia. Like it's a thing. So and so the video was about this trend, basically, that it's this qualia is moving from the side of philosophy to the side of science, where they just go and measure it. At least they call it qualia. I guess that the are philosophers who would disagree that this even is qualia. So of course, if you define it as something that's unmeasurable, then we don't have to talk about it because you've defined it that way.
A scientist doesn't have to talk about it because a scientist can't talk about it. doesn't mean it's not there. It just means that it's not measurable.
So that makes it by definition unscientific. But I think if you're talking about, this spirit of what was qualia supposed to be, like this subjective experience, then you can measure it. It's something that's going on in your brain circuits. Of course, that doesn't mean that somebody else can experience exactly the same. Because, well, I would say the only way that somebody else can experience the same as some other persons if they actually are that person. So that doesn't make any sense.
That's true.
Yeah, that's interesting what you just said about defining your terms. It's like, well, okay, scientists are beginning to study qualia, but philosophers look at that and go, well, the fact that you're studying it means it can't be qualia because, qualia is something that can't be measured. When you think of like redness or a triangle in your head or something, do you like understand the philosopher's critique where they say that there is something about that individual experience of redness which is just inaccessible to the scientific method? As in, like, do you think that it's appropriate to call qualia that thing which is inaccessible to science, or are you sort of more optimistic about the breadth of what science can do?
I don't know what the part would be that's inaccessible to science. So you do have an
She's
experience.
Just not understanding.
We can measure that in principle, maybe not in practice yet, but in principle we could. So I don't see what else there is. I'm sorry, I'm a physicist all the way down.
Yeah, that's the problem here. Is there is like, again, it's like I was saying, there's just a problem here. There's just a legitimate. We're attracting people to the sciences that are very good at being materialistic, but they're very good at being materialistic at the expense of being able to conceptualize the philosophical nature of some of these questions. And therefore, they only are capable of seeing the world materialistically. And that means that, like in her case, I don't think she's lying. I don't think she's being like dishonest or she's being like hard to understand. I think that is just straight up like it's just the view that she has of the universe, and it's just not within her to see it another way. But it does mean that I can't take her seriously when she says there's no such thing as these immaterial things because we can't measure them.
The famous Mary's room thought experiment. There's the girl in the room. So for the audience, there's a girl in a room called Mary, and we can imagine that she's given access to all of the information that could exist about the color blue. That is not just like the Wikipedia page that we've got today, but like every bit of information we could ever have about the wavelengths, about the science of the eye, about the psychology of the brain. She reads up and is an expert on all of it, but she's never seen the color blue. But she knows everything that could be put into words about the color blue. And the question is, if she then, after learning all of that, walks outside and sees blue for the first time, does she learn anything new? And for a lot of people, intuitively, the answer is yes. But if the physicist says that everything about the experience of blue can be described in sort of scientific language, would you therefore say that she doesn't learn anything new when she steps outside of that room? Or is there some sort of third answer that I'm missing?
First of all, I'm now super confused because I thought the color was red and not blue. But I mean, you never know. Maybe her blue is my red or the other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, no, of course she learns something new when she gets when she goes outside because suddenly she has photons of a certain wavelength hitting her eyes and that sparks some reaction which she didn't have before. So it's just a different thing. So of course, just having a physical sensory input isn't the same as learning everything about what the brain does in response to that input. So those are just two different things.
I see.
So I guess the question you could ask is like, imagine she had all this information about what people experience when they see the color red or blue, whatever, and she also had a sort of brain stimulation machine. by the help of which she could, excite certain neurons in her brain if she knew exactly what to do, would she have the experience of seeing the color red? And my answer to this would be probably yes. Going by everything we know about how similar brains are. Now, you could always argue that, of course, strictly speaking, your red isn't exactly the same as my red because our brains are slightly different, but I would say, well, they're probably similar enough.
That's really interesting. I guess that would count as a third option, which is that to sort of truly know everything about blue without seeing blue, you would also know exactly how to prod the brain in the right way to bring about the experience of blue, such that if she had the correct equipment to prod the brain in that way, she could bring about that experience of blue and learn what that experience was like without actually seeing something blue, like in the room. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, right.
That's interesting.
So you don't actually need the photon hitting your eye if you know what it does in response in your brain, basically.
Interesting. All right, so then let's say that she does this thing. It prods the brain. She does the thing, but it doesn't. She doesn't have the experience of it. She doesn't have the experience, because that's what we're talking about here, is the experience of seeing blue appearing in your mind. If that doesn't happen, so she prods the brain, it does the thing, blah 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 blah, blue brain happens, but the experience does not. The conscious experience of that is blotted out from her mind. Now does she know what blue is?
I see. That's cool. That's cool. And so the center of consciousness is the brain, and consciousness is just like the product of complex arrangements of things, or something like that. Like atoms arranged in a complex enough manner gives
So I mean, this is a good cheat, but it is it's mixing the materialism with the immaterialist stuff, such that it is like it's confusing enough. Like I don't think Alex sees this idea yet, which is like the thought experiment is you get everything materialistic about the color blue. You're exposed to all of that, but you have no conscious experience of it. Okay, so in that scenario, you would have to say, all right, the conscious experience of the color blue, you don't have it. You're like, you can have like a dream of the color blue, or something like that. Even that's getting into the conscious experience of it. But yeah, like I think it's a weird question that I'm not sure. I don't know where we would land on this in terms of the actual thought experiment. But again, I'm like, I do think there's more to this. I don't think it's a dead answer.
Centralized experience of consciousness, because one of the other mysteries is like why if there are lots of moving parts all put together, why there's like this one singular, center for the consciousness,
Yeah, well, so I think at this point it gets very difficult because we don't actually know exactly how consciousness works, and everyone has their own theory about it. I think it's probably quite complicated. You need different specialized parts of the brain that do different things.
And you think that that's ultimately going to be a scientific rather than a philosophical question, or do you think that that's a bit of a phony distinction?
I think it's going to move from the philosophical realm into the scientific realm, and we're witnessing this move right now, basically. So at the moment, I think if you look at those theories of consciousness, they're all very, very basic, and I find them all quite unconvincing. But I don't know, give it 100 years. Who knows if AI comes and they'll solve the problem in about no time.
There is also this, I guess, perception amongst some people that
this is also an interesting thing. I do wonder what she thinks about AI, because like a lot of people that do know what they're talking about with AI are like, yeah, this is not even close to any kind of like consciousness. Like it's not even like pointed in that direction. It's pointed in like a totally different direction. It's pointed in like pattern recognition. It's like obviously we say AI because that was the cool sci-fi term, and therefore, that's what got adopted. But to be honest, the descriptor that I like better, that I think is more accurate, is autocomplete. It's like really good autocomplete. It knows what you're going to say before you say it because it's seen it 100 million times before. And it's like, all right, well, that's cool. But even if it got like insanely super good, if we had, God tier autocomplete, we would never say, oh yeah, autocomplete turned sentient. Autocomplete is now sapient. It's creative. It's conscious. It's alive. It's like, no, it's autocomplete, dude. Okay. It's not, it was never intelligent. It was never even attempting to be intelligent artificially or otherwise. It was autocomplete.
Science and philosophy are at odds to the extent that a lot of physicists look at philosophy and sort of think that it's a watered down or ancient version of what the physicist is doing. I'm thinking of people like Lawrence Krauss who've just said that philosophy is kind of nonsense. I think it assumes that there's like an empiricism to knowledge, that like anything that can be meaningfully known is something that is open to the scientific method, is testable, that kind of stuff. Given that you've written quite extensively on what people would call philosophical topics in existential physics, what is your relationship to philosophy generally? Do you look at it that way, or do you have a bit more time for it?
Well, I'd say there's good philosophy and there's bad philosophy.
Oh, yeah.
But, so you need to know what to look at. But actually, I think there's a second order problem with the physicists that look down on philosophy, which is that a lot of philosophers think that all physicists look down on philosophy. so I get a lot of hate from philosophers, because I'm supposedly dismissive of philosophy, and I'm like, no, I'm just dismissive of what I think is bad philosophy. Like panpsychism, if you want to talk about this at some point. But no, I actually think that most physicists, and I totally disagree with Lawrence Krauss on this, don't take philosophy seriously enough, especially when it comes to the foundations of physics. Like think of stuff like quantum mechanics. You need to know, like, where does the science end, where does the philosophy start, and I think physicists are really, really bad at figuring out where they cross over into philosophy, and this is where a lot of things go wrong.
And I think this is why I think she's on my radar, and why I wanted to watch this video, is because she is good at spotting those things in her field that are, like, okay, we've crossed over, we're at a weird liminal stage where this has become strange in my area of expertise. But like this, like the specific stuff, which is like, again, I think kind of outside of her field, the free will stuff is just like, that to me is not within the realm of that. She just kind of thinks it is.
And I wrote about some of these issues already in my first book, when they make mathematical assumptions that are actually metaphysical, and they don't see the difference. Like, so they think it's a requirement. It needs to be. It's mathematical, right? When it's actually, something else that they postulate the laws of nature must be like. And so I think that this is a huge problem, which is why I got interested in that. And then, as you probably know, philosophy is kind of a rabbit hole. As once you start looking into it, there's no end.
I'm really interested in what you said about, I guess, like philosophical assumptions that people unknowingly embed into their scientific worldview. So famously, Albert Einstein sees that his equations point to a finite universe or something like this. And so he adds in his cosmological constant to his equation so that the universe could be eternal, because of course philosophically he knew that the universe had to be eternal, just like, you know, Aristotle thought and everyone in between. And so he adds in this constant and later takes it out again and calls it his greatest blunder, right? And that blunder that Einstein, if Einstein can do it, we can all do it, made was a result of essentially a philosophical assumption that, well, the universe has to be eternal because otherwise it sort of wouldn't make sense. And we now don't think that's the case. At least this universe is probably not eternal. But that philosophical assumption changed what Einstein ended up, you know, finalizing his equation as, if I'm not mistaken. And I suppose that's something that can sort of crop up everywhere. One of the really big assumptions philosophically that seems to send people into an absolute frenzy when it comes to all areas of science is the existence of free will. You've already mentioned it, but there's a particular area of application here. Now, I'm hoping you can help me understand this. I did a video recently called The Existential Crisis Iceberg, where I went through all the different levels of ideas that might give you an existential crisis. And somewhere near the bottom was this thing called superdeterminism. Now, superdeterminism is something like determinism, but as applied to the quantum realm. Everything is ultimately fundamentally determined. And if I'm not mistaken, a lot of physicists reject this. They say superdeterminism is nonsense, and at least a lot of them do that because they have to assume that free will exists, or something like that. Can you help me understand what's going on there?
That's a very interesting question. I think this has a long historical backstory. So if you don't mind, I'll try to briefly summarize it. So we already talked about Einstein. Einstein, for all I know, didn't have any strong feelings on this free will thing, but Niels Bohr did. So Niels Bohr, interestingly enough, thought he wanted quantum mechanics to be indeterministic because he thought that makes room for free will, which I think is a position that most philosophers now reject. But for him, it was that's actually what he wrote, if I remember this correctly, in some letters to Einstein. So for Bohr, who's often credited with being kind of the father of the Copenhagen interpretation, this was really important. So now Einstein had misgivings about quantum mechanics that didn't have anything to do with free will, but it was the measurement process, so the collapse of the wave function is faster than light. And of course, Einstein didn't like this, right? This is what he called spooky action at a distance. So he tried very hard. He had a long argument with Bohr to try to pin it down, like something is wrong, and he ultimately failed at it. But he had this idea that there is an underlying, probably deterministic reality in which particles all have definite properties. So there's nothing of that sort going on, that you can't measure two things at the same time, or that particle goes into places. He didn't like that sort of stuff. He thought a particle is a particle goes one place, and that's at the end of the story. We just don't know where the particle is going. So Einstein died, and then came John Bell, who tried to finally pin down the difference between the Einstein view and the Copenhagen interpretation. And this is where Bell's theorem comes from. So he said, let's assume that Einstein was right, and there is this underlying reality which is deterministic, and it has no spooky action. It's local. there's nothing like a collapse going on, then what are the predictions that this sort of theory generically would make, and how does it compare to quantum mechanics? And so now, here's the thing. In his proof, he made an assumption, which is now called often the free will assumption. And you need this assumption that the experimenter has free will to derive this inequality, which basically says that the Einstein type local deterministic theories obey an inequality which we know experimentally is violated. So if you make this assumption, if you make the free will assumption, then the Einstein idea is ruled out. If you throw out this assumption, you get what's called superdeterminism. And then you can reproduce our observations with a local deterministic theory of the type that Einstein might have had in mind or might not. Unfortunately, we don't know what he would have thought about this. But so this is the reason why free will became tied up with this superdeterminism thing. Now, the issue is, though, that if you look at exactly what do they mean with free will, it doesn't have anything to do with what philosophers normally, or even, standard people on the street. Let's not even talk about philosophers mean by free will. It's an assumption that's, more technically it's known as measurement independence. It's got something to do with the correlation between the thing that you want to measure and the measurement settings. You can choose measurement settings with a computer. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with free will, but so this is where it came from, and I think part of the reason this happened is
so it's just like a misunderstanding. Okay.
That Bell himself, in his original proof of the theorem, seemed to have not noticed that he even made this assumption. So this was later pointed out to him by, among other things, John Clauser, one of the guys who won the Nobel Prize in 2022, that there was this extra assumption, which Bell then justified by alluding to free will.
I see.
So you can kind of think so like he must have thought like, damn, right? Yeah. So suddenly there's this hole in his theorem. So he had to come up with a reason for why we need this assumption, and
that was free will.
That was free will, yeah.
Interesting. So let me see if I've got this right. So we've got this weird quantum stuff that goes on. People can imagine like the double slit experiment where there's like a wave pattern, but if you observe it, then it's a particle, all a little bit strange. And so there's this Copenhagen interpretation, which says that the electron is actually a sort of cloud of probability, a wave function, which is a sort of prediction of probabilities of all the places it can go. And when you observe it, what happens is that wave function collapses, so to speak, and the particle is in a particular place. And that happens when you observe it. Before you observe it, there's this big wave of probability. The problem is that if you've got this wave of probability that goes from my left hand to my right hand, and then I observe it and it collapses and the particle's on my right hand, there needs to be this information over at my left hand that the particle isn't there. But because it happens instantaneously, this information seems to travel from my right hand to my left hand in an instant, which means faster than the speed of light.
Okay.
So Einstein says that can't happen. Therefore, this idea that the electron is just a cloud of probability is wrong. There must be some kind of, foundational nature. It must have a foundational property. We just don't know what that is yet. And so after this, Bell wants to retain the idea that information can't travel faster than the speed of light, that everything is local, in other words. It has to, if it's at my right hand, it stays at my right hand. It can't just zip across space instantly. And in order to retain this locality, he comes up with this Bell's theorem. But that theorem assumes something. It assumes something about the way that the scientist interacts with the experiment, which is an assumption, but he doesn't realize is an assumption. And only later when that assumption is pointed out to him, he says, okay, well, if we didn't assume that, then free will wouldn't exist. And that was the reason he gave for agreeing with this assumption. But we could just deny that assumption and everything still works. Something like that?
Yeah, almost.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you got something wrong.
I made 2 notes about things that I'm slightly unhappy with. One is you said something about the way that information travels. So there isn't actually any information being exchanged. This is actually the big headache, because if there was information being exchanged faster than the speed of light, then we could measure it. So the entire problem with the collapse of the wave function is that it's completely unobservable. So there's nothing observable actually going faster than the speed of light. I mean, it would actually be cool if that was the case, right? And then we could send information faster than the speed of light, but that isn't so. So this is the one thing. The other thing is that mathematically, this assumption to Bell's theorem doesn't really have anything to do with free will. That's just an interpretation.
That's what I thought.
So what it really is like...
That's what I was thinking. Is he was just covering his ass. Somebody came up with somebody pointed out, oops, you screwed this thing up. Okay, well, no, there has to be this indeterminacy there, because that's the only way you can have free will. And
like
free
mathematically, it's a type of correlation between things. And you can try to connect it to the choice that the experimenter has in deciding what to measure. You can actually, since you mentioned the double slit experiment, you can actually see in the double slit experiment why that helps. Because one of the weird things about the double slit experiment is, so you have these 2 slits, and then you get a wave pattern that comes from the interference of the 2 parts of the wave function that go through each slit. So the weird thing about this is that the one particle, even if it's only one particle, it kind of needs to go through both slits to interfere with itself. Because if it goes through only one slit, it can't interfere with itself. So now what you can do is you can put a measurement device into one of the slits. And what happens then is what you said is that the interference pattern goes away, because now the particle it knows I'm being measured. So it goes only once. So either it goes in the detector, then the detector goes pling, or it doesn't, then it goes through the other slit, but you don't get the interference pattern. So now I think you can see from this example that if what the particle does it split up, or does it only go one way, is correlated with what you measure. Do you measure at the slit, or do you measure on the screen? Then you can explain what's going on. Because if these 2 things are correlated, then you have a deterministic variable that tells you, does it go through both slits or does it go through only one? Yeah. So this is basically how superdeterminism works.
If there is a correlation between, the observation of the phenomenon, or the way that you observe the phenomenon, and what actually happens, the phenomenon itself, if there's some kind of correlation between those two, between my looking at the particle and what the particle does, or the detector and what the particle does, then, that's fine. There's no problem. That's why it acts differently when we observe it and when we don't, because there's some correlation between us observing it and what it actually does. But the thing that Bell assumed is statistical independence, right? That is, that there is no correlation between your observation or the detector and the phenomenon itself. And
so it's not that there is no correlation between the observation, but between what you observe.
Right.
So it's like the variable that you actually measure.
Sure.
Is
so
like
what you observe.
The path or the interference on the screen,
Sure. So Bell assumes that there is no correlation between those 2 things. But as a physicist, you could assume that there is a correlation between those 2 things, and that would mean that Bell was wrong. But Bell wants to say, or at least that his theorem is
right. So yeah, I mean, look, it's a proof, right? And I think no one doubts that the proof is correct. You make assumption ABC, you get results so and so, and then, you know, there are like 10,000 people have repeated. I'm pretty sure it's correct. But there's like the question is, what does it tell us about reality? Like this is the question, right?
Sure. Okay, so why is it then that when Bell is asked about this, and someone says, "Hey, you know, you've assumed that there's no correlation between, you know, observing the path and the result of the where the particle goes or whatever," why does Bell then say, "Oh, well, we have to assume that because otherwise free will wouldn't exist"? How are they connected? At least in Bell's mind.
Yeah. I don't know if they are.
Well, that's a very good question.
Yeah, I think she's probably going to be like, well, she should. If what I understand, if this is correct, he's essentially just saying that to cover himself, to basically be like, yeah, like free will can only exist in a system where there is some degree of randomness, because if there's not some degree of randomness in, you know, like quantum blah 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 blah, then the space for free will to exist doesn't exist anymore, because like there's kind of like there's no choices or whatever. But it's kind of like that's not even necessarily what he actually believed. It's just like that was a good excuse to shut, you know, his critics down.
So for one thing, there's generally the issue: how do you reconcile free will with determinism? Forget about the super. Like this is already difficult. So and we could stop at this point and say, well, it's deterministic, so free will goes out the window. So this is one answer. The other answer is that what Bell had in mind, and sorry, I'm trying to think of a way to not make this too technical. So if you think about what we just discussed, so what the particle is doing, does it go one flavor or both, needs to fit together with the measurement that you make. So it somehow seems that the measurement needs to be just right to fulfill this correlation. And so now your choice of measurement in a deterministic theory always came from an earlier cause. So you can trace everything you do and say and think can be traced back ultimately to the beginning of the universe. And what Bell, I believe, had in mind, and many other people have later said similar things, is that if you believe that this correlation exists between what the particle's doing and your choice of measurement, then your choice, the choice you will go on to make, must have been correlated with what the particle will make all the way back at the beginning of the universe. And that seems like an extremely unlikely coincidence, and it's often called a conspiracy of sort, that these two things would.
I think he's getting it now. I think she's kind of, again, I don't think she's necessarily explaining it in a way that most people can understand it. What I'm going to say is that for free will to exist in a sort of physics-based system, in a physics-based worldview, there has to be a degree of randomness. There has to be some, like, you know, quantum waveform, like, all right, like you can go A or B. Those two options exist, and only because those two options exist and they're both real, plausible, actual options, then you can make a choice between them. You can determine, you know, you can self-determine one way or the other. Okay. And if there's only, you know, one option, A, even if there appears to be a B, but there's not a B, there's only A, then free will cannot exist in that system, because, you know, you only have one route to follow. Even if it looks like there's other decisions and choices that could be made, there's not. You're running, you know, a maze that's been determined from the beginning of the universe. Now, she is basically saying, and I think Alex would agree on this, that that is not what we mean by free will. That's not really what we're talking about. We all just got kind of caught up in the weeds because she went into some super technical stuff, and it got very confusing. And me and Alex are on a more similar wavelength where we're kind of more philosophy brained than physics brained, and therefore we didn't really know what the hell she was talking about. But I think finally she did put it in a way that was, you know, analogous enough to that framework that, you know, he could understand it. Hopefully
fit together in that exact way. So I find this argument quite misleading, because you can always make, like, forget about quantum mechanics. Like, every time you measure anything, you could say, well, but actually my act of measuring this particular thing, or having chosen to study physics, or, you know, eaten this thing for lunch, has other causes, which goes back to other causes, which goes back all the way to the beginning of the universe. Like, you can always say that. And then you can always say, oh, there must have been a great conspiracy in the universe to put together all the atoms of your body so that you came out being exactly the way you are right now. Okay, but no one ever makes this argument. So why do you suddenly make this argument for this particular detector setting?
I think that confusion crops up all the time. So just to make sure that I'm understanding what you're saying, we said that the thing Bell assumed is that there is no correlation between like my observation and the effect of the experiment, or the result of the experiment. There's no correlation there. And he says, well, if we assumed a correlation, then free will wouldn't exist. Why? Because if my observation is somehow correlated with what the result of the experiment will be, that implies that both what the result of the experiment are and whether or not I chose to observe it in that way must sort of have been already preordained, because how else could they be like correlated and connected unless they both stem from some prior cause, right? So if you do assume that there's a correlation between the observation and the effect, then that's you could do that solves the problem, but it means that there's no free will, because that means that your decision to observe it in that way must have been caused by something prior. And so Bell looks at this and goes, well, you know, I don't really want to assume that there is a correlation. Why not? Because there'd be no free will, because there'd be no choice. But you rightly point out that the problem for free will is much wider and prior to that. I mean, an example I often give is, suppose we're talking about quantum mechanics and whether there is randomness in quantum mechanics or not, right? Is everything determined, or is there some kind of randomness in quantum mechanics? Some people want to say, well, there has to be randomness in quantum mechanics, because otherwise there could be no free will. Because if everything was ultimately determined, there'd be no free will. And so if there's no randomness in the universe, we'd have to do away with free will. And it's kind of confused, because even if there is randomness, or whether there's not, the point is that you're not in control anyway, right? Like, the idea that you want to retain this quantum randomness, because otherwise you've gotten rid of free will, it's like, before you even get there, you've got 100,000 reasons to give up your belief in free will. So at this point, if your only justification for retaining quantum randomness is to keep free will, we lost free will ages ago, so that's not a good reason to keep this quantum randomness. And the same kind of thing applies here. You know, Mr. Bell, Dr. Bell, if your only reason for assuming this correlation, or that there's not this correlation, is because of free will, like, dude, like, we forgot about free will ages and ages ago, right? So something kind of like that, I think, is maybe what you're getting at.
Yeah, so I totally agree with you about the issue with the randomness. I think the idea that people have is like, you have this randomness and you get to choose what the pick is. But then, of course, it wouldn't be random, right?
Yeah.
So it's not how it works. So, you know, honestly, I think a part of the reason that it's often referred to as free will, this assumption in quantum mechanics, is because that looks good in the headlines. Like, there was just like last week, there was an article in New Scientist about the free will assumption. It was, and the headline was something like, "This experiment can rule out free will," or something, and it's about testing superdeterminism, which I'm very interested in. But why do they have to make it about free will? And so you read the article, and it has this interesting line which says that if these correlations and superdeterminism are real, then that would the laws of nature would constrain what we can do. But the laws of nature always constrain what we can do. Like, you don't even have to talk about superdeterminism. Like, gravity constrains what I can do. Like, this is like, if it wasn't so, it wouldn't be called a law, right? So what superdeterminism does is it adds a new constraint, like, which is this correlation, and yeah, that would constrain in some sense what the experimenter can do and can't do, because the actions have to fit together with what the other thing does.
Yeah, it's as if you've got like a car that's completely broken down and can't run at all. It's just completely broken, and someone comes along and they smash in the front window. And somebody says, "Oh, if you smash in the front window, then the car won't work." That's true. Yeah, if you smash in the window, the car won't work. But it wouldn't work anyway. It wouldn't work even if you didn't smash the window in. You know, like, oh, there's no. If the universe is determined, if superdeterminism is true, then there's no free will. Yeah, that's true. But there was no free will anyway, even before the superdeterminism stuff like came in. And I think there's a lot of confusion there. And you're right. Like, people will connect this idea of free will and determinism so that anytime a story comes out, maybe the universe isn't deterministic, the headlines run, "Oh, look, there's room for free will." But there's just not. They aren't as connected as people actually think they are. And that's something I try to make a point of all the time. When people say to me, "Do you believe in free will, or are you a determinist?" And I say, I think neither, you know? I'm not a determinist. I don't know. I'm agnostic on that. But I still don't think free will exists, regardless of whether everything's determined or not. It's like much, much prior to that.
Okay.
To explain why would require philosophical argumentation, which I'm not going to get into now. My listeners will be bored to high heaven already of hearing about it. But one thing they might also be bored of is something I've been talking about quite a lot recently, which is this idea of panpsychism, the idea that everything is fundamentally made up of consciousness. And the reason I've made a rather sharp little detour there to mentioning it is just because you said earlier that an example of bad philosophy is panpsychism. I've had a few panpsychists on the show. I've had some people who are agnostic about it and think it's interesting, but I don't really know about it. I've never had someone on, at least not yet, who says that it's bad philosophy. Why do you think it's bad philosophy?
There we go.
First, before I answer that question, I want to say something about your wrap-up of this free will in superdeterminism thing, because I think it's relevant to note that the people who make this argument about free will, they're all physicists. I've never heard a philosopher make this argument. So this entire connection to free will and all the blah blah about it, it comes from physicists, and this is an example of why I say I think physicists should pay more attention to what philosophers are actually saying, and maybe look up what do they even mean by free will and so on.
Yeah, so we don't mind when physicists say, "Hey, there's this interesting finding that the universe isn't deterministic." Cool. That's great. That's physics, and I would never hope to understand how or why you could know that. But I do know that that is not a good justification on which to say, maybe free will exists. Like, maybe you should speak to a philosopher before making those grand philosophical claims.
Basically. Yeah, so about panpsychism, basically my opinion about this is the following. There are two types of panpsychism. The one I'd say is properly philosophical, and it's a kind of a flavor of dualism. So it's something that science can't test, and some people think it explains something. Then we can talk about what does it mean to explain something. And then there is a version of panpsychism which has a physical element. It gives attributes, new attributes to particles and to everything else, which is this consciousness attribute. In which case I'd say, well, if that's a physical thing, you're doing physics, and what you're saying is actually wrong. And then you can take a pick. You know, either your theory of panpsychism is wrong, or it's untestable.
What is the thing that would be flatly wrong, like in terms of someone's physical understanding for that second kind of panpsychism? What is the thing that they're getting wrong?
So some flavors of the panpsychist theory, they have this idea that they call proto-consciousness or something. So this is like little elements of consciousness, and if you combine sufficiently many of them, then consciousness comes out. And so if you do anything to an elementary particle which isn't already there, which isn't in the standard model of particle physics, if it can do anything, like if it has any properties, then we would have been able to start. And so
did you say the standard model?
If you do anything to an elementary particle which isn't already there, which isn't in the standard model of particle physics,
standard model particle physics. Okay, I was thinking she's mentioned something different, which I had a point on.
Like if it has any properties, then we would have been able to see this already. So either it doesn't have any influence on what's going on in the human brain or whatever, then it doesn't explain how consciousness comes about, or it's in conflict with what we have already measured.
Gotcha.
So the only sorry, one thing. So you can of course say that this proto-consciousness just doesn't have any properties whatsoever. But then again, it doesn't explain anything, right? It must be able to do something at some point.
Yeah.
So what do you think then of this idea that I mean, the panpsychist of at least one stripe says that the fundamental stuff of the universe is consciousness. Like, what is everything ultimately made of? Oh, well, atoms. What are atoms made out of? Protons, electrons. Well, what's a proton? Oh, it's made of, I don't know, gluons, muons, truons, whatever they're called.
Yeah.
What's it all made out of when you get to the bottom? And the panpsychist says consciousness. And it sounds a bit kind of wacky and strange. But one thing that it might sort of point to is why is it that certain subatomic particles seem to do one thing versus another? Like, why is it that electrons are negatively charged? What does that mean? It means that they repel other negatively charged electrons. Panpsychists might look at that and say, the scientist can't explain why it does that. It can explain that an electron does that, but it doesn't tell us why. Maybe the reason is because the electron has some kind of rudimentary preference, and that's what's causing this kind of differential behavior between subatomic particles. And so when the scientist looks at the fundamental stuff of the universe, electrons repelling other electrons, actually they are observing a very rudimentary form of preference. It's just that they're not thinking of it that way. Humor me. Tell me what you think of something like that.
Well, I would say that doesn't explain anything. That's just a story that you can tell. So, unless you can actually write it down and make a prediction with it, I'm not having it. So, of course, you could say, well, everything is made of the same fundamental stuff. Let's call it.
Yeah. But again, that's actually not what he was asking. That's actually not what he was asking. His main point there was not about what is it. It's why is it? Why is it this thing? It's not about predictions. It's about the fundamental nature of it beyond the material. Again, like the why of it. Not the why of, it's behaving this way mechanically and this kind of stuff. It's why is that the way that it behaves? I understand that that's the way it behaves, and it behaves that way because of this thing, and because of this thing, and blah, 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 it goes back. But eventually you arrive at a point where you have to ask, okay, but then why is it this way as opposed to any of the other millions of different possible ways it could be? And it's like, okay, well then the why here is because it kind of chose to be. It kind of, it had some degree of preference. And preference only exists if it has some sort of choice. And you would just say, okay, well, choice only exists in the presence of some kind of consciousness. So it's, it's an insanely super base version of it, but it exists, because of consciousness. And again, I mean, this is the very real divide between making these super theoretical, philosophical arguments to someone who has, a super duper insanely materialistic worldview and, like lens of viewing reality, plus just a general, like, it's again, it's sort of like materialistic brain versus a immaterialistic brain, mind, language, blah, blah, blah. It's very difficult to do.
Consciousness, I don't have a problem with it. This is basically a theory of everything. But just by giving it a name, you haven't explained anything. You need to tell me, well, how is it that your consciousness stuff, if you want to call it that way, differentiates in particles that have exactly those properties that we observe? So, think of string theory. If you want, why not call the string consciousness? So are you happy with that? If you're a panpsychist? If not, why not?
Yeah, because it doesn't explain anything further. I mean, one of the criticisms that people make I say criticisms, one observation or idea that people make about science as a whole is that it's purely descriptive. I talk about this a lot too. And I like speaking to physicists about it. I spoke to Brian Greene about this, for example. The idea is that science only describes things. It doesn't actually explain anything. Isaac Newton is the most famous example of someone who perfectly describes, well, almost perfectly describes the mathematical laws by which the planets all sort of orbit each other and all of this kind of stuff, and describes it with perfection. But when he considers what gravity actually is, or like why it acts in accordance with those particular properties, he says, I've got no idea. Hypothesis non fingo is what he writes. Some people extend that to science as a whole. They say that, okay, so you've told us that an electron is a negatively charged particle. Cool, but why? Like, why is there this thing that repels other negatively charged particles? Where do you fall on that debate? Do you think that science is completely descriptive, mostly?
I think the question you need to ask is that a cool question or is that a stupid question? Do you like that question or do you not like that question? If you like that question, you're a philosopher. If you don't like that question, you're a physicist.
Descriptive, or that it does actually give us an explanation for why phenomena exist?
Well, I would say you have a weird notion of explanation. So first of all, yes, I think science is totally descriptive. Like, what else would it be doing? But also, like, if you make your assumptions or hypothesis or whatever you want to call them, your axioms of your theory, and you can use that to make a prediction that's actually correct, I would call that an explanation. And it's actually the best type of explanation that we have. And by construction, any theory will always require some sort of assumptions that you cannot explain further. Like those are like the basic axioms where you say, okay, a particle is described by I don't know, a vector in a Hilbert space with some symmetry group or whatever. And so this is the basic assumption of your theory, and then you use that to derive what we observe.
So this predictive power is important here. Can I give you one idea then, or one thought experiment as we sort of look to wrap up here? I'm imagining, right? So I'm going to do that thing that philosophers so often do, which is come up with completely ridiculous scenarios that hopefully will be instructive to some degree. Suppose I discovered that there was this trumpet, like in this room over here, and if I played a particular note on a trumpet, then a red light turned on over there. And if I play it quietly, it turns on quietly, and if it turns on very, very dimly, and if I play it loudly, it's very bright, and so on. And I'm like, I don't understand why it's doing that. I have absolutely no idea, right? But what I figure out is I describe with perfect accuracy, the relationship between if I play this note at this volume, we get this kind of brightness, and if I do it louder, then I get a brighter bulb. And I come up with a perfect mathematical description that accurately predicts exactly what will happen to the light bulb when I blow through the trumpet. So now I've got this mathematical system that perfectly describes and predicts with every time I try it, it's 100% accurate. It tells me exactly what the light will do when I play a particular note on the trumpet, right? So I've completely and utterly predicted exactly what's going to happen. If somebody then asked me, but why does blowing the trumpet make the light turn on? Like, what's the explanation for why that's happening? And I said, well, look, I think I've explained it as far as I can, which is by coming up with a mathematical description which accurately predicts what will happen in the future. I would feel like that hadn't actually explained anything at all. And do you think that Like, do you understand the criticism I'm making, I suppose, when I say that it sounds a lot like that might just be what science is doing in general, right? Like when you've got this great mathematical explanation and this perfect prediction, using that mathematical description, to say that that is enough to have explained the phenomenon sounds a bit like the person who thinks that we've explained why the trumpet turns the light on just by coming up with a predictive mathematical model.
So I would say that so you can always ask for better explanations. So maybe you're not satisfied with your trumpet story because you feel like there must be more going on. That's fair. So I don't think that these are exclusive. So your trumpet theory explains something, but there might still be something deeper to be explained. And this is, I don't know if you know this clip of Richard Feynman where someone asks him how does a magnet work, or why magnetism or something, and he gets really frustrated and he says, well, in a nutshell, he talks for a while. He says, magnetism is just one of the fundamental forces of nature. Like it's one of the deepest explanations that we have. The electric and the magnetic force, and then we have some other forces, and everything else builds up from this. But there's always a deepest level of for any moment in the history of science. We have a deeper level where we have no further explanations, where we can just say that's it. Right, we've gone that far. So magnetism is just there. It's how the universe works. And then you can still ask, but why magnetism? And maybe there's a deeper explanation, and maybe there is a theory of everything. Maybe string theory is correct, or maybe something else. But I think science will always have this end of why.
String theory, probably not.
And then you can still ask another why.
Just it seems to me that trumpet situation, once I've come up with that mathematical description,
she's not getting it. It
almost feels like I don't feel like I've explained it to some degree, but maybe there's more of an explanation. I kind of feel like it doesn't explain anything. Like it predicts what's going to happen, and it describes mathematically what I'm observing. But in what sense, like to any degree, do you mean to say that I have at least partly explained like what's going on with the trumpet and the light? What do you mean by that word "explain" in that circumstance?
Well, suppose there's someone in the other room and he sees the light going on and off. Sometimes the light goes on and off. And you tell them about your trumpet theory. And then we'd say, oh, that explains why the light keeps coming on and off.
Okay, I see. But if they then said, but why does the trumpet turn it on? Then you would need a further explanation. But to at least some degree, I would then say in at least some contexts of like the information that you're looking for, it might explain something. But man, I suppose those listening can decide for themselves. And hey, let's boost some engagement. Leave a comment in the comment box down below as to whether you think that counts as an explanation or not. I'm still not sure, but it's one of the great thrills of doing this podcast that I get to ask people from all different kinds of fields. So I've asked the same question to, like I say, to Brian Greene and other physicists. I've asked the same question to all kinds of philosophers, and the one thing that's becoming evidently clear to me is that nobody seems to know for sure. But I appreciate you taking the time to run through some of these ideas with me, and it's been fun. And if anybody is having an existential crisis, there is more to say. There are deeper levels.
Yeah, we didn't really get into that actually, which is hilarious. We did not get into existential crises. I didn't find any of that stuff in there. I will say this was about what I expected. I'm glad that he did kind of push her a little bit in terms of science not necessarily being able to explain all these things, and the sort of like the philosophy behind science not necessarily showing up all the time, and people getting kind of lost in the weeds of the specific field that they're in. He did do that. I don't know if he did it particularly well. I don't think I would necessarily do a better job, but I'm glad to see it to a degree. And with that, I want to go over to this other video. All right. as a palate cleanser, we're doing one like deep video and then like a joke video. So let's see. From lack of entertainment, Japan embraces the ESG lifestyle.
We gotta look at the new body type B characters
Woof.
from the new Tekken.
Okay, I was looking at this for a second and I'm like, oh, this looks like, and I'm like, wait, what? Hang on. Like my eyes were not working. It just hit me. Like how disproportional everything is. It just hit me. Look at her hands. Dear God.
Hilarious because it's exactly what Grooms and I have been saying. Japan is not immune to the woke culture. It's just 4 years behind.
Mm-hmm.
And as you can see, when you look at these characters, like everyone is pointing out, dude, this is the character of a guy. And he just swapped the face.
Yeah.
Like that's it. That's what they did, right? Like this is the male character, and you can see this when you're comparing the hitboxes. Like it's literally that. Like it's a male character's body, a male character's anatomy, and it just has the head swiped, right? And the animations as well. Like the AAA studios was guilty for this. You know, when you animate the character, there's a way that women walk, like their body language exists, and then there's a way that male body language exists. I can't really put it into words. I can't really describe how men walk and how women walk, but like if you see it incorrectly, it's like this uncanny valley.
Yeah.
And AAA studios have done this a lot. Like they would use a male actor to do the mocap for the female characters as well, and it looks absolutely horrible.
We can actually describe this. This is hilarious going from the philosophical physics description to this video. But it's like, no, we can actually describe this. It's like, yeah, it's because like men and women have different proportions, you know? So like if you have like super wide hips to a narrow waist to, you know, like relatively narrow shoulders, and, you know, your legs are generally speaking longer than your torso, you're going to walk in a certain way. And that would be like more feminine, as opposed to, you know, if you have different proportions of these things, those tend to be male body types, and therefore you move differently. And it's not even like necessarily like, oh, like this person's walking in a very flowy, feminine, these things. It's like, no, dude. It's way before that. It's like an actual like biological necessity that this person walks in this way, because otherwise they'll fall over, because they'll be unbalanced. Because they have, you know, legs of a certain length to a torso of a certain length to a certain width to a certain, you know, shoulder to waist to hip to blah, 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 blah. All of those ratios inform the way in which you walk. And obviously, human beings have been looking at other human beings walk for the entirety of our existence. And it helps to, you know, be able to determine, is that a man or a woman crossing the field? If it's a woman, well, maybe they're just looking to pick berries. If it's a dude, maybe it's the, you know, advent of a raiding party or a tribe, you know, invading ours. So it helps to be able to recognize that stuff at a distance very quickly, instinctively. So we know that stuff. And, you know, if we're going to have this in video games, then it gives us that ick factor of like, no, this is a dude. This is a dude walking. Why does this dude have a female skin on? It's wrong.
To the point where people were basically saying, look, you're trying to sneak trans people in. This is exactly what you're doing, and you're erasing femininity. Because you're not doing this with one or two characters. Like, you're doing it consistently and across the board. And you go at various game development conferences and you're actively stating that you're trying to do this. It's called the gender abolition movement. Like the very idea that there is absolutely no difference between a man and a woman besides cosmetic. And most of your customers don't agree with this. Like you in fact, they don't even care what the customers have to say, because if the customers disagree, then they're bigots and they're evil people. And they end up just alienating their customers through their community managers. Because you got like the community manager, you know, if you say that this is absolutely ridiculous, this looks ugly, this is not something that I would spend money on, you have the community manager coming out and saying, oh, you're gooners, you got cum brain, blah, blah, blah. Like, just insults after insults, attacking their community, alienating their customers further, and ending up with a game that no one wants to buy. Even trans people don't want to buy it.
No.
Like, I actually do have a couple of trans people that I speak with, and they tell me, it's like, look, when I play a video game, I want to play as a female character. Like, I already am a guy in real life that identifies as a woman. I have a male body and I identify as a woman. Why would I want in a fantasy section to have to replay my emotional issues? It's like, no, if I'm playing a fantasy session, I want to play as a woman. And so, as you can see, you know, like the... I guess like body type beefication, you can call it, where you have like broad shoulders, strong jawlines, no ass, very small breasts, and all of this is done in order to promote gender abolition and also to shame straight men for their sexuality.
Terrible.
You know, people keep complaining about the birth rates and they keep putting this on men. It's like, okay, fine, but we live in a society where if a man says, okay, well, this chick is hot, immediately they get attacked saying, oh, so you're like a porn brain, you're a coomer, you're whatever. Even though it's like a fully dressed woman and she's like legitimately hot. And people are attacking him just for expressing his sexuality. Like, I'm sorry, this is not normal. You know, if a woman says that a football player like Ronaldinho or Messi is hot, or a famous actor, Ronaldo Bloom, is hot, no one is supposed to shame her for that, right? Like, she's just expressing her sexuality. It's normal, it's healthy. But what they are doing is they're using entertainment to constantly shame and belittle men for being straight guys. It's like, I'm sorry, straight guys are attracted into fat tits and big asses. It is what it is.
I do like the use of the really hilariously crude language to make things stick. And I'll be honest, it totally works. I do absolutely see myself like way more resonating with this stuff just because he's using this like, yeah, man, you just like fat tits, dude. I was like, yeah, dude, totally.
And so, will this game fail to sell? I don't fucking know. It's a fighting game, right? Now,
yeah.
It's
I hate fighting games.
On-off switch, where if the characters are ugly, it means the game doesn't sell. No, it's pretty much like if you make aesthetically pleasing characters, you can probably get like 15 or 20% more of sales.
That's fair.
If you insult your fan base, if you call them coomers and whatnot, you lose some of those sales. If you make ugly, unlikable characters, you lose sales.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean like you're not making a profit. It just means like there were probably like 5 or 10% of the sales that.
But I mean, dude, with the amount of budgets on these things and the amount of like, oh my God, accountants on these things that are predicting these things to the degree that every aspect of these games is like so highly monitored because they want to make sure that they're getting the money out of their budget. Dude, any little aspect that's going to like potentially take away from sales is like actually potentially going to kill your game. So why would you even do it? And I will say, I don't know if Japan has gotten on the train, because like there's got to be some weird thing that's like blowing these budgets out, that's actually allowing these companies to like make these horrible financial decisions and not be immediately destroyed in the market. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But I don't know, maybe Japan will get a quicker immune reaction to this.
That you can buy. Like I know people that actually bought what was it called, Blaze Blue or Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, right? Another fighting game, Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. They bought that game simply because it had to be near Automata. It was hot, right? So like that's still an impulse buy, that's still a purchase that someone made, and that's a valid customer, right? Like I don't know anyone that has seen a fighting game that has like sexy female characters like Juri from Street Fighter or Stellar Blade or anything like that, and people will be like, well, I would like to buy it, but the women in this game are too hot. No one says that.
No.
However, like, you would have a person that would overlook a game, but simply because they find massive character appeal or they see like a very pretty female character that they like, and that convinces them to buy the game simply because of aesthetics alone. And you're basically telling those people no. You're basically telling those people we're not going to give you what we want, what you want. And so, what ends up happening is that this is also a symptom of a larger disease. Like, normal game developers, normal people do not create characters like this all across the board. Like, it's one thing to have one character like this, it's another thing to have two.
Excuse me.
But when every single character looks like this, it's an ideological rot, and it's part of an ideology that doesn't promote excellence, doesn't promote merit, and doesn't
That is
promote
the main issue.
competitive.
That is the main issue to not buy these things. When you have these characters that are ugly, when you have, you know, when a picture of the development team comes out and it's like, oh, we got a lot of like, you know, blue-haired ladies who are, you know, in their 40s and blah 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 blah, you'd go, I can't trust that these people got here because of, you know, being really super concerned gamers and programmers and writers that just are doing the work nonstop all day every day, only concerned about that. It's the only thing they care about. You're kind of almost certainly guaranteed to be disappointed in that. And you go, no. Actually, this person spends 99% of their time being an activist, being a Twitter warrior. And therefore, their coding sucks. Therefore, their writing sucks. Therefore, their art sucks. Therefore, their blah, blah, blah sucks. Because you know what? They're not insanely obsessed with that one aspect of their creativity to the exclusion of all other things. And that makes them the best there will ever be at making character models or writing quests in RPGs or blah, 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 blah. These are real reasons to actually pass on a game, I will say.
They're not even remotely interested if a person is competent or not. And so what happens is it has usually a very toxic work environment. Like woke ideology is hyper-focused on grievance, on grifting, nepotism, especially race-based nepotism. That's their priorities. And so you end up with a system where artists aren't allowed to do whatever they want. They have to draw things that are actually ugly and not nice to look at. And so it crushes their spirit. Absolutely crushes their spirit. And you end up with all the good people leaving. And you end up with what happened with the video game industry in the West. Collapse after collapse after collapse. Studio shut down. Things not working well because people don't buy it. You know, like, if everyone that actually supported this, because there's a lot of people on Twitter that do support it, if they were to actually buy the games, maybe it would actually work. But, like, no one is interested in buying the games. That's the big issue. And so, regarding Tekken, I don't know, like, I guess if the gameplay is good, right? But it's probably going to hurt esports. No one wants to watch this, okay? Like, no one is interested in paying money to see this. It's a fictional character that doesn't look like fiction. It's an escapist character that doesn't allow me escapism, and it reminds me of fucking California. And it's fucking uncanny and distracting.
It is.
And again, you know, like, if you want to have a trans character in the game, that's fine. But, like, when every single female character looks like a body type B Democrat, and they're saying, no, this is actually a woman, shut the fuck up. It's like, well, now it's insulting and gaslighting. Like, I'm sorry, people are noticing. And that's why it upsets them more. Like, gaslighting upsets people more than if you were to just be honest and tell the truth.
Anyway, check out V. He's a good dude. All right. Piers Morgan. Israel has gone too far. I actually don't think we're going to have time for that. We'll have to save that. I'm going to do AI Dark Humor instead. Yeah, we're not going to have time for that. I want to see if I can play a game, maybe.
Oh, all right, 10 minutes of the most diabolical AI videos. This sounds great.
Grandpa, what's dark humor?
You see that guy over there with no arms? Go tell him to clap.
But Grandpa, I'm blind.
Exactly.
Okay, that was pretty. So at first I was kind of like, ha, that's funny. But the second punchline was good.
Sir, I need you to put your hands behind your back.
All right, people were saying we're never going to be able to tell AI. I mean, I guess. That's what it's supposed to be, right? We're supposed to be all freaked out that the AI is going to just, like, completely obliviate all creative action. It's like, dude, I don't know, man. I don't think the AI is gonna be able to come up with stuff that's this like unhinged and ridiculous.
There's
not gonna be allowed
black
to.
people in this house. I'm checking to see if you guys are rappers or doing crime.
And are you active in the bedroom?
Oh my god.
Damn, so you get no hoes. Damn.
Oh my god, the dad is laughing. Look at the dad.
So you get no hoes.
The kid looks so... Uh-oh.
Hey, honey, I just woke up.
Did you just say woke?
Okay, that one was pretty funny.
Wow, you're so beautiful. I love your eyes.
I'm being harassed. I feel uncomfortable.
True.
Ah! Help! I've been assaulted!
What's happening?
He was saying inappropriate things to me. He assaulted me.
I was just complimenting her. I thought she was beautiful. Oh. Unfortunately, if someone feels uncomfortable with the compliment or conversation you gave them, it is considered assault.
Oh, the jumps.
Your chest is flat.
The jumps.
Whoa. AI schizoing out over there.
Take you to the hospital for a mental evaluation.
We need to do a brain scan. The police are demanding one.
What? Why?
We might be a little freaky deaky.
Look at how many freaking, oh my god, look at all the amount of like tubes coming out of him.
Why?
Look at all of the taps. Look at all of these. Oh my god, there's like 50 of them.
Freaky deaky.
Well, this is a long one.
This is so long. God, this took somebody all day, all of their credits. They wasted so much money on this.
It hurts.
Hello, I'm Dr. Evans. Can you tell me your name?
What?
You are being diagnosed with being human. You will have to stay here until further.
True.
Oh my god.
But it's not even
And then it's
anymore.
DSP all of a sudden.
Holy fuck, he turned white.
She looks like she got beat up.
Hello, guys. Today we're helping Quan get some watermelon and fried chicken.
My name's Austin, and I'm looking for fish.
That's Cat, brother.
So what do you do for a living?
I'm a pirate.
Oh, so you steal from boats?
No, I fry airplanes.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Got back home early.
I didn't get that one at first. I was like, wait.
That's so
I went to surprise my wife. Let's see what she's up to.
He's all yours, little bro.
What the hell? Tyrone, Jamal, and Trayvon?
What brings you out here today?
Climate change, women's rights, trans rights, fascism, racism, veganism, Satanism.
What brings you out here today?
Trans women should be able to use the little girls' room in an elementary school's diet.
What brings you out here today?
Oh my god.
Women should have the right to be able to abort 10 years after pregnancy.
Why are you out here at today's protest?
I'm gonna be real, guys. I'm gonna be
Save
real.
Democratic.
That's a consistent take, honestly.
Oh
you
my
might think
God.
it's crazy, but that's actually consistent. This is very consistent, actually.
about that,
Yeah,
but,
the
you know.
AI knows. The AI knows. Yeah, it knows.
And then said, if we don't show up, democracy is gonna die. So here I am.
Oh my god.
What exactly are you protesting today? I'm not
This is all
sure, but I stand with whatever's trending right now. How you're protesting today? Because CNN said if we don't, democracy's over.
True.
God, again, I don't understand how AI is so, like, just absolute dog shit at making signs. Save democracy. How are they so bad at this? They kind of democracy all.
That sounded really serious.
I like the save
That's so bad.
Honestly, like the AI fucking up here actually is so perfect. It actually is like so accurate.
Because if nobody speaks for minorities, how will they know what to think?
True. Actually true. That's a good point.
I like that. These are fun.
For unity. Wait. So
Extra
if you
arm.
don't agree, get the fuck out.
exactly are you protesting today?
I don't know the issue, but I stand in solidarity with whatever's trending right now.
Yeah, me too.
Juan, what are you buying today?
Hey, my name is Carlos, bro. I'm looking for a Ford Raptor.
I got you, Juan. I have something you will absolutely love.
I thought for sure it was going to be like
honestly,
ice.
Honestly, you can start a business with that and make a fuck ton of money.
Yeah, exactly, dude. That's way better.
Not
Yeah, are you kidding me, dude? A Ford Raptor versus a food truck? Dude, a food truck is going to cost so much money, and the resale value is going to be so much higher.
For that one, you fucking fat ass. $229.
GG.
Jump in.
For ethnicity, are you 7-Eleven or 9/11?
Bro.
I only date black guys.
I wish I were black for you.
It's just this.
Oh no.
Oh my god.
Can I have 4 cheeseburgers and 2 large fries?
Okay. And what would you and the kids like?
Nice.
I heard we bombed Iran, and I heard they mad. Well, tell them to pull up. I got the blicky.
Wait, what's the blicky?
Yeah, I don't know
what the hell's that?
Iran don't want it, and that's on Compton Crip. On the dead homies don't come to Compton.
Oh, gun, I see.
I'm looking for some YNs selling bars of chocolates.
What?
I'm looking for some YNs.
What's that?
Selling
I think I know what that
bars
is.
of chocolates.
What is that?
I think I know what that is, but I'm not saying it.
This is my friend Keisha. What are you buying today?
My name is actually Tracy.
Oh.
Yeah, she got it eventually.
Oh.
Leaflet.
Mercedes.
I've never heard that before, but I was there right away.
Oh, look at the card says bitch on it. It's pink.
Do you have good grades, son?
Not really.
Are your parents rich?
No.
You're in the Marines,
Welcome to
baby.
the Marines, soldier.
Hell yeah. They got the right branch.
What are you doing? No son of mine will wear deodorant.
Bro.
Why is your truck so lifted and
Oh my god, that's horrible.
You know, I like men and have a micropecker.
Brave young protesters are taking a
Every
stand
once in a while,
against
there's a
ICE
good
by
one.
looting businesses.
Why are you here today?
These are so
We
horrible.
heard there was a loot going on, but we was trying to figure out if it's Cinco de Mayo today or something.
I'm watching this in protest, obviously. I'm not into this. I'm not actually laughing. These are not funny. These are definitely not funny. I'm watching in total protest. I'm looking for I'm actually part of the AI review team. I need to make sure, I need to categorize what stuff's okay and what stuff's not, so that we can muzzle the AI and make sure that it doesn't make any of this stuff ever again.
Father's Day cards being stolen. Stacey.
Holy shit.
Back to you.
Holy
Flag here today. I'm just so damn brainwashed, and the news told me to do it, so here I am.
Oh my god. You know what's really funny about this? Like, the fact that this is funny is purely it's purely a reaction to the fact that, like, the only way to be transgressive now in comedy and humor and these types of things is to be like Republican and conservative, which is ridiculous. It's insane. It's like, it's not normal. It shouldn't be that way. But yeah, I'm still into it, because like I do like, I mean, this is the only way to be edgy. The only way to be edgy is to be like against whatever the current cultural zeitgeist is, and this is clear evidence that the current cultural zeitgeist, you know, the overwhelming majority of cultural institutions and these types of things is left-wing and progressive. So, I mean, say what you want, but this is the only way to have, like, edge nowadays. It's unfortunate. We'd like to be able to, you know, hit both people, but this is it.
AI is like scary good now. Like, you can still
Some of
tell
it.
it's kind of AI and it's fucked
Yeah.
up, but like, dude, think about how far
Look
AI
at
has
how
gone
blown out
in,
the
like, 1
windows
year.
are. I don't know. Like, the background, the windows look like they're all super blown out. This does look like a video game.
It's wild, isn't it?
Waving the flag of the country we fled while demanding to stay in the one we're trashing.
No one loves Mexico more than the people that refuse to live there.
Just the timing on that one was so good.
I don't know the issue, but
oh man, he's a sheep. He has a sheep shirt.
Oh my god, these are
stand
great.
in unity with whatever is trending right now.
Sir, can you tell me why you're out here today?
Because someone's got to lie to the Hispanics to make them think Republicans are the bad guys.
Te voy a dar con la chancla.
This is AI. No Mexican lady is being shot on YouTube. That is true. This is not real. These gun top, there's not even guns. They're actually cell phones, and there's firecrackers. Oh my god. Ridiculous. Oh my god, these are horrible.
Okay, time to go back. No, don't send me back there. It's horrible.
Why are you here
Oh
today?
my god.
I majored in social justice, so I know what's best for communities I've never lived in.
I do wonder if
As
there's a real
liberal,
major.
We need to make the world think we're caring people.
True.
We'll have 1 beef Wellington, 1 lobster thermidor,
Oh,
1
no.
seafood pizzella, and 1 portion of fries.
So 4 watermelons finely chopped and Kool-Aid.
Oh, brutal.
You know what's funny is
Disavow
they're
immediately.
actually, there's a southern restaurant that's like really famous for like really good fried chicken.
Oh my god, these
and
are
it
horrible.
literally comes with a waffle and then watermelon. Like actually, I'm not even joking. Like,
Really?
like if you order it's like a $30 plate too. It's like a $30
Damn.
fried chicken. It's really good. I've had it before. It's actually one of my favorite fried chicken places. It literally comes with watermelon on the plate.
I mean, watermelon's
oh,
good.
and they have Kool-Aid. Like actually, you can actually order Kool-Aid from there.
You know what's funny? That's probably the one they went to on Jolly, where they had that. And what was it called? I was like, they had a drink specifically, which was like, yeah, which was like Kool-Aid plus like other stuff.
And it's like
Yeah.
a nice restaurant. Like it's like
Mhm.
those like kind of expensive, like in the city, like kind of 30 to
It does suck that it's like, I got to imagine there's like people that are ashamed to like watermelon if they're black. They feel like they're betraying, some expectation of like, no, man. This is what the racists want me to like. If I enjoy fried chicken, which is objectively good, and watermelon, which is objectively delicious, you know what? I'm feeding into what those racists want me to do. It's like, man, that sucks. You should be able to like what you like. All right, those things are good. I like them too.
$40 range restaurants, but they have that.
Are you sure this is the right house?
Not Kool-Aid though. I don't like Kool-Aid.
Oh no, no.
Oh my god.
How did this?
I don't even know. Is this dark humor? I don't know if this is dark humor. This is like, yeah, this isn't really dark humor. Dark humor was like the first joke where it was like, somebody was blind and somebody was like, had no arms. Like dark humor is like what veterans tell, which is hilarious. This is more just like being as edgy as humanly possible, being as like completely transgressive. Whatever the things you're not allowed to say, that's what we're saying. I don't know if that's not dark humor.
Oh no.
Yeah, there you go.
no.
Good decision. Good
I
decision.
not have cataract. I have Rincon Continental.
Wait, what?
I not have cataract.
Oh, I get it.
I have Rincon Continental.
She'll get it eventually.
True.
She didn't get it. I got it. Yeah. He didn't have a Cadillac. He had a Lincoln Continental. I got it.
Okay, it took me a little bit to. I get it.
She got it now.
Cadillac. It's
There you go.
Cadillac. Yeah,
She got it.
He's having a heart attack.
I'm a doctor of philosophy.
He's gonna die.
We are all going to die.
There you go. See? That was actually deep. I like
Okay,
that one.
that one was pretty good. That one was pretty good.
And girlfriend, what are you buying today?
My girlfriend and I are looking for a new Prius.
Don't worry, Avery. We have plenty of Subarus you two will love.
Wait, what? Why? Wait. Are Subarus gay?
Brutal.
Wait, Subaru's a lesbian car? Wait, why?
Yeah.
Is that
I had
a
a
thing?
Subaru. Yeah, I had a Subaru. Subarus are good cars. Subarus are super good cars. They really keep their value, and they're pretty good to fix. They're reliable. They're really good for that. Although apparently, yes, they are like a lesbian.
Wait, Subarus are lesbian cars?
Yeah, apparently.
What? I didn't even know that.
For some reason, I don't know why.
My name's Keely. I'm looking for a Mini Cooper.
Jeez.
Okay, that one's diabolical.
You're not fitting in that.
This one's diabolical.
This is the IRS calling.
Just
I
like your
don't
brother.
understand how
Nice
the
job,
AI.
son.
I don't understand how the AI is so bad at like writing. It's the most systematic thing we have.
Did I just woke?
No, no.
Puffy Gavin Newsom. There we go.
Wait, is that like Gavin? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, he's too puffy. He's got some speed on him. For no
Hey
reason.
girl, I'm here for a new car. You already know what happened.
See you tomorrow.
You most likely will. Dead ass. Dead ass. This one better not act up. I just got out to finance. That 40% interest rate finna kill me. What? Quandale, what the You better be ready because this damn curb got in my way. At least you'll be happy I didn't fuck up the rims, dead ass. I ain't stopping. It's not like he's GSP. I should have been a cop. I heard they drive Altimas now, dead ass.
What? I don't get it.
I don't know what's happening. What is going on?
I'm outside. Get your lazy ass out here. I just hit the
Look
fucking
at
fire
the
hydrant.
hair clipping through the.
Child,
Oh
am I
my
not
god.
cultured? I don't get this one.
The hair
just bought
clipping
this and
through her
it's already
hoodie.
sounding like a
Hilarious.
go-kart. Nobody fucking told you to come pick up the trash right fucking now. You stupid. Dead ass.
What the fuck?
Get your lazy ass out here. I just hit the fire hydrant. Dead ass.
Oh god. All right. That was a good palate cleanser. We have to do something else. I can't do this one again. All right. I want to try to get something other than this. Let's see. If we go to YouTube, what's going to be the first thing that pops up here? All right. What do we think about Sydney Sweeney? The jeans thing. It's so ridiculous. I don't even want to talk about it. It's just so stupid. You know what else I'm obsessed with, though? This. Investigation stuff. Hilarious. Home investigations. All right. I should have. I have one more thing queued up, which is this Piers Morgan thing, but it's going to be way too long. I can't get into it. Let's see what else. Sydney Sweeney and the War Against Beauty. Welcome to the party, pal. All right, this.
I guess I need to ask you, gentlemen, a question because I've been away for a couple of days, so I'm catching up on stuff.
Okay.
What on earth is going on with Sydney Sweeney, and why has the entire world lost its mind over her?
That's an interesting question. Why have they lost their mind over her? Well, I guess they haven't. Like, to be perfectly honest, I don't think anybody cares at all. I also think Sydney Sweeney is just propped up purely because of the fact that she would, show her boobs, and she's young and relatively pretty. So, good for her. She knows what she's doing. She knows what she's got to offer. She didn't want to do OnlyFans. She wanted a little bit more clout and acceptance, and she was able to get into that world. So good for her. She's being the highest class of prostitute that you can be. And I mean, I don't really have anything hugely against people that do that, as long as they're aware that down the line you might come to regret it. If you're aware of that, then do what you want, man. I don't care. Make your money. If that's the thing you want to do, go ahead and do it. I really do think people are not only blowing it out of proportion, but they're just trying to see what sticks. They're like, hey, she said jeans, and obviously it's a play on words, I guess. And that's what they're reading into, where they're just like, yeah, man, some people really expect there to be a giant Nazi, conspiracy in all aspects of media for some reason. Like, if it's not white people, it's whatever. Pick whoever's the bad guy. It's just ridiculous. I don't know how much people actually care about this. I'd have to, you know what I have to do? I have to ask my dad about this. Like, hey, Have you heard about Sydney Sweeney? I have almost 100%, like, for sure certainty that he'd be like, who's that? Because I know he didn't watch Euphoria or whatever show she's on. And I don't think he's that deep into the Twitter stuff that this would have ever popped up for him. Okay? So clearly, like, most normal people have not heard of this person. My mom definitely hasn't. Let's put it that way. So it's just ridiculous. But
Advertising.
Oh, my little Bloomerline. Sydney Sweeney.
Yeah.
Oh.
She was in one commercial for jeans. Was it American Eagle? And she's suddenly become the topic of debate on the internet, basically, and everyone's mad about something to do with her. It's been kind of a wild ride, I suppose.
Well,
what's going on?
Just
as far as I know, some jean company got her to model in jeans because she's a very attractive lady. A lot of people just had allegedly.
Stop objectifying her rags.
Wow, this is alleged. Hey, I'll stop when she stops. All right, look, she got paid. All right. But yeah, I guess a lot of people had an issue with that. I don't know much about it. I've just been noticing that apparently
these are all online personalities and they don't know what the hell's going on. All right.
Usual suspects were upset with this very very conventionally attractive white lady was put in this big ad that apparently helped get this jean company a whole bunch of money, or from what I've heard. It's like American Eagle or something.
Yeah,
right? Was that it?
Stocks increased apparently, which is hilarious.
I'm going to check the share price actually after this.
People like to see hot ladies in jeans. No belts in sight though, because women don't wear belts. I don't know why. They just don't. I don't.
Not even suspenders. Isn't that crazy, Rags?
So when the advert launched,
that's just because of women's body types. You have wider hips, so they stay up more accurately. And then also, there's not a lot of stuff in pockets. You know, women are not carrying things in their pockets a lot, so there's not the extra weight pulling your pants down. Like I can't wear pants and go outside without a belt cinched to the limit. Otherwise, I will lose my pants for sure.
Price jumped from $9.9 a share up to $12 per share.
Dang. That's a
thanks
big
for
jump.
the free publicity.
That's a big jump. Yeah, that's like
That
what,
is.
25-30% increase in share price.
Like percentage-wise, that's really big. Or maybe
That's
I don't
huge,
know.
yeah.
I'm no economic magicalist.
No, that's
so
enormous. It's like a, what, 30%
overtime
bump?
on that one. I think they
that ass got
paying it.
paid. That ass got paid.
Yeah, she did.
But yeah, apparently this is Nazi-esque iconography to have a white lady in jeans, because you know Nazis love jeans.
Well, she said the word jeans, and if you're really reading into things, jeans could be, instead of, blue jeans, which is what she's wearing and talking about, and it's like, hey, I've got jeans, I like jeans, I'm wearing jeans, I've got great jeans, my jeans were handed down to me. And it's like, okay, I guess, yeah, if you were really insanely Twitter-brained, if you're progressive brained, you could easily be like, oh yeah, what? She's talking about genes like eugenics. Eugenics, man. Eugenics like the Nazis. And it's like, okay, eugenics was everywhere. Everybody thought eugenics was like totally the way to go. But then also, do we even have like a super duper good genetic theory back then in the 30s and 40s? Did we have like, when is like Watson and Crick doing DNA? Is that gene? I feel like that's later. Am I right? Am I crazy? I feel like that's later. I feel like that's the 50s or 60s. Yeah, I feel that is correct, because there was LSD is the thing that like helped them visualize the double helix model of the DNA molecule. So that had to be 50s or 60s. So then you didn't even have genes in the eugenics. What the hell?
Like, you look at the stormtroopers and stuff back in the day, all dressed in denim.
Hugo Boss was big in denim. Yeah, he loved it. He liked that bluish.
Just painted white for the stormtroopers. Weird choice, but yeah, it was all denim. Drink is correct. And yeah, it's just crazy that there's all this analysis and deep discussion about all the subtextual meaning, because she's got blue eyes, blonde hair, she's white, and they're talking about genes and supreme genes and
Yeah.
oh my goodness.
Okay, I think we have just proven we've just proven that the Nazis could not have cared about genes, because genes like DNA was not really even discovered. I mean, I guess maybe you'd say there was some discovery of DNA at the time, but again, Watson and Crick DNA model doesn't happen until, you know, like the 60s. So that's not possible. We've just proven
it's
it.
just that she's hot. That's it.
I just
She's
solved this
hot,
problem.
Yeah, I
That's
just
it.
think she's a hot lady, and so they put her in commercials to advertise their product.
It's truly not that deep, guys.
It really ain't that deep. Sex sells. I think this is a fact that like companies have known
Could be.
for most
It could be
of
deeper than this. Like this is the one thing I will say. It can be deeper than this, because there's definitely marketing execs that are aware that controversy sells. And this is why you definitely have like articles, and you have things that are just rage bait, you know? And because they know they're going to generate clicks, they're going to put eyes on their product or whatever it is. In certain circumstances, like the James Gunn Superman stuff, all of his like, you know, crazy marketing stuff that is like really not representative of the movie, but was like all, oh, it's all so woke, and people milked the crap out of that, you know, like Critical Drinker did. All of those people, the Nerdrotics and these things, just went crazy over that. And they put a lot of eyes on it, but I also think they turned a lot of people off. You know, a lot of people were like, oh, no, I'm not going to go see this. You know, so I think that kind of marketing does potentially hurt some properties, but for other things, yeah, like jeans. Oh, American Eagle. I haven't heard of American Eagle in a while, and now they're in the news about what? And I'm like, I don't know. I just heard American Eagle 100,000 times. Everything else I tuned
most
out.
of human history.
People in ancient Greece, they weren't saying put the ugly broad up front. Yeah,
when they had to model their jeans back in the day, like they would put hot women in them too.
Surely it's chapter 1 in every marketing book. It's like, this is get this out of the way. This is just true. This works. Anyway, now to get to more complicated stuff.
Well, I think we had this little experiment for a few years where we tried to put like morbidly obese, gender non-conforming individuals into like underwear and stuff to try and model that. I think Calvin Klein made a good stab at it. Funnily enough, like people didn't resonate with that sort of thing, and it seemed to be based on this like strange idea that you want to see yourself modeled in this stuff, whether it's
I do.
jeans,
Whether it's Sydney Sweeney, I do. I see
Sure.
myself. I see myself in her. Is what I'm.
I can imagine myself in her, but like that's a different discussion. But yeah, I think they missed the point of like all this stuff is meant to be aspirational. If you see like people in lingerie or whatever, it's not really what you look like. It's what you want to look like, or in
if I buy those clothes, it will help me to look like that thing. You know, that person.
Yes,
it's a lie.
You know, that celebrity. I can,
but it's a lie that
in some way, even
sells.
subconsciously, I can attain some piece of that status or aesthetic if I wear the threads. But if I see a big old fat bitch up there, and I'm like, I don't know if I do want to look like that. If that brand is going to help me attain that body or that look, I don't know.
It's demotivational, isn't it?
It kind of is. And there's a difference between
I don't know. I mean, like, again, I can understand in a sense, like I can understand this, because like, all right, I've lost some weight and I'm wearing this shirt now. This shirt does not really work for me. This shirt is not great for me. Because it's like this short sleeve button down. I'm too skinny for this thing to like be filled out. If I was like more jacked or something like this, it would fit better. Like it would fit better on my shoulders. It would fit better on my arms. This kind of shirt really only works if you're like rail thin and it's skin tight, or you're hugely fat and there's like a little bit of play on it. Then it looks okay. Then it flatters you. Everything else though, everything in between, it's either going to make you look too skinny because there's like some extra play in it, and not skinny like trim and thin, but like emaciated and fragile and like a beanpole, like, or it's going to be, it's going to be too small, and then like, the buttons are going to be like popping off and these things, you're going to look fatter than you are. So I understand the argument of like, hey, let's show a variety of body types. Let's, because like most people are not, 6'4" muscular He-Mans or, 120-pound, sex pot models. They're, average looking. And in America, that means, relatively, extra above average weight wise, which is average, I guess now. But like, I understand that aspect of it, but that's not how you're selling things, because like, if you're looking at that, it also requires you to, take your blinders off and go, oh, yeah, I am fat, so I should be looking at the fat people clothes, and look to see what, does that stuff. And that hurts. Like, that stings. If you're doing that all the time, especially where you're like, yup, got to make sure that I look at the big and tall fat guy models, because that's the only way I'm gonna find stuff that fits me. Even if that's true, even if that's like, yeah, the only way you're gonna actually find stuff that fits you is by looking at the, I'm big fat guy clothes. You're like, no, you know what? I'd rather live in a dream and look at, the super hot fit dude clothes and be like, you know what? I can not only I can look a little bit more like him by wearing these clothes, but I do look a little bit, you know what? Yeah, I do. I'm way more like this guy than this big fat slob model. Yeah. It's like, dude, it kind of hurts.
Having someone, just having a variety of models who have a variety of sizes, so that the company can say, hey, we've got all these sizes and it looks good on everybody. That seems markedly different from what we have seen that you were kind of talking about, where they put these very specifically very large people who are not at all conventionally attractive into these outfits. And it's different. Like, they're really pushing it.
They are, and it doesn't work ultimately. And I think most of the major brands, was it Victoria's Secret? I think they used to do like their lingerie models, and they tried to either do away with them or replace them with more body diverse models. And it was a horrendous disaster, and no one was interested. And so they just bit the bullet and reverted back to what they did before, and everyone's happy again. And I don't know, man.
Except some people, I guess.
Sure, yeah, but then you kind of you wonder what the ulterior motive is to a lot of that. Like, is it going beyond the aesthetics to like what it represents for them, or just hey, misery loves company, And if, say, they look in the mirror and they see a diverse body type that doesn't really get reflected in the advertising, are they just sad? And rather than go to the gym and get in better shape, it's easier for them to just demand that things get made to appeal to them or make them feel better about themselves. I don't know, but I've got an inkling.
It's a weird world we live in, isn't it?
It kind of is, yeah. I don't know if either of these, like whether Sydney Sweeney or American Eagle, has actually responded to any of this backlash, or if they've just like carried on and ignored it.
Counted their money.
The smartest thing they could do would be just ignore it and let it blow over.
Yeah.
Just enjoy the money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. I get the impression she doesn't really give a shit. Like,
no, why would you?
She's going to get paid no matter what, and like, she is very aware of what her popularity is based on. So why not make use of it? I would.
Oh yeah.
If I looked like her. God damn.
If someone sent me a message and say, hey, wow, you're really attractive, we want to pay you a lot of money to model for our company, I'd be like, yeah, all right, yeah. Normally I just look this good for free, but if you're gonna start paying me, I'll take some of that.
I did like this one. Wonko the Sane says, I truly hope the next ad to use the word genetic stars a black basketball player, if only because the new face of fascism memes would make TikTok's collective head explode. Yeah, I guess that sort of thing only works in one particular direction, but For sure, yeah. It's absurd.
If only it was any other thing than jeans, because jeans is double meaning. So it's and remember,
Sydney
some
Sweeney's
people
got
pointed
good
out,
jeans.
Sydney Sweeney SS. Coincidence?
Okay.
Oh my
Now
God.
you're pushing it. Now you're
Just
pushing it.
covered the code, Mauler.
There are people out there who are like, this is too much of a coincidence.
Oh,
It's like,
Okay, I guess that's true. There are people who are like that.
saying?
That's true. Okay.
American Eagle's like, we're bringing it back, everybody.
Yeah, I did not see that coming.
Whoa!
Yeah, this was a good
Did
point,
not
actually.
see
Joe
that
Swoll
coming?
lost his page apologizing and not ignoring. Yeah, because he made a post about Hulk Hogan, didn't he? And he was called out for like, oh, Hulk Hogan said bad things back in the day. That means you can't ever say anything good about his wrestling accomplishments. So he immediately backtracked and apologized. Yeah, and it's again, what's the point?
He had like a follow-up post being like, looks like I can't do anything right. It's like,
Yeah.
How about you just stick to your principles, you know, and actually believe in something and stand your ground? Like,
It's not even
okay,
that.
If you
It's not even that. It's really not even that. It's not even stick to your principles. I know that's a cool buzzword, and that does make you seem like really taking a stand and you're doing good stuff. It is just literally like, no. It's not stand by your principles. It's you can't show weakness. Unfortunately, that's where it is. It's not about making a principled stand. It's not about doing something because it's the right thing. It's like, no. You can only do this because otherwise they will smell blood in the water and more people are going to come for you. They're going to be looking for scalps. They're going to take yours if they think they can get away with it. All right. So you just can't show weakness. It's unfortunate that that's where we're at, and I hope we get away from it. But yeah, you can't even think about that. You can't, the principle stuff, it's great. And if you're doing it for that reason, hats off to you. But to be honest, a lot of it is just straight up, no, you just can't show weakness. People are looking to just cause misery and harm to other people in a way because they're sadists. They get off on it.
really didn't like Hulk Hogan, you can say it, or better yet, just shut the fuck up because the guy just died. You know, maybe just have a respectful silence. Yeah. Or if you do want to support him, fine. Like, stand by that and say he wasn't perfect. He was absolutely a flawed human being, but he accomplished amazing things. So maybe we should just be mindful of that. Instead, this, trying to please everyone bullshit. Like, you're not going to please everyone, especially one particular side. Like, if you ever say anything wrong, that's it. You're done. No amount of apologizing.
It's like that Splitgate 2 guy when he wore that Make FPS Great Again hat.
Yeah.
And then I guess he saw someone didn't like it, and so he completely reverted and said, "Oh, I'm so sorry for this parody hat I wore." And then he ended up making everybody upset because now, like, oh, well, now you're a giant pussy, and I don't want to play your game. And now they hate you anyway because they're always going to hate you. So great work.
Think about this is ages ago now, but that guy who landed like a probe on a meteor or whatever, but he was wearing the wrong shirt.
That.
It had like a woman in a bikini on it, and ironically, it was given to him by his wife.
Yeah, well, she should have thought about that.
You know, the sad thing is, like, he wasn't even a public figure. Like, I guess guys like Joe Swoll and stuff, like, okay, like, they're used to taking their knocks publicly, but this guy was just like a scientist, you know, and suddenly he's getting bombarded with
a
like
lot of people.
all this, like,
a lot of people that happens to.
threats and like abuse and stuff, and it like reduced him to tears when he was apologizing for it. And I just thought, wow, all those people who did that, like, you ruined what probably was like the greatest achievement of that guy's life and turned it into a
incredible
nightmare.
achievement for mankind. Like landing like a probe on an asteroid or whatever. That's incredible.
Yeah, and it's like you've reduced him to tears because he wore the wrong shirt that you didn't like. Are you proud of yourselves?
That was early in like the feminist kind of discourse.
so, yeah.
I was gonna say that feels
So
like
I wonder.
times.
So I wonder if that thing were to have happened years later or around today, what the response would have been. Just because the culture around that was still sort of developing, it was new, it hadn't settled.
I mean, I think now, probably after all those years of like people getting cancelled and stuff, he just never would have like been allowed to wear a shirt like that. Like, his wife would have said to him, like, don't wear it. Like, I don't care about it, but it's not worth the abuse you're probably going to get if you go on TV with it. I hope we get to a point where we can just, anyone, even like a guy like that who's not used to public, backlash, could just say, fuck you. I'll wear what I want. I don't care about some puritanical little shithead who wants to like exercise power over me on social media. You can fuck right off. I'll wear whatever I want to do.
The ear itself, it reminds me of training I got in that hellish toy store that very much made me like sort of, it just black pills you on a lot of stuff where basically they give advice for what happens when customers are insane, basically. Like if a customer says you've done something that you haven't, or if a customer wants a refund when they've clearly broken the thing, or blah blah, they were like, there's stages to this. You try to calm them down, you do try to see about what's reasonable, negotiate in some way, you can call for higher ups to come down. But they said, but if it takes like 10 plus minutes, whatever they want, just give it to them. Like if they're loud enough and they scream enough, just give it. And I remember being like, that's terrible.
Yeah.
And it makes me think that that's kind of reflected in culture as a whole.
And I guess the thing that would hold people back from doing it, because obviously that means there's huge incentive to be as loud and obnoxious and as much of a problem as you possibly can, because you're getting free stuff for it, right? And there's no way, if it's just this one place, let's call it Toys R Us. It wasn't, because this guy's British, but something like that. That means that if you could do that in any number of things, you're like, hey, every restaurant I go to, I eat for free because I'm happy to make a giant scene every time so that I can get my stuff for free. The only thing that holds people back from doing that is, the social aspect of it, of every single person looking at them and going like, what a piece of crap. What an absolute piece of crap. And them having the capacity to be shamed by all those dirty looks of like, what are you doing here? This is a toy store. Why are you making such a scene? I can't believe this. You're scum. You're absolute scum. And that is the thing that keeps them in check from not doing this all the time. It's the only thing. And I guess we're just kind of losing. I guess we just kind of lost that in terms of social media. That dirty looks of you just shut up, mind your own damn business, I
just feel like if everyone screams loud enough, we'll do anything you want, basically, even if it means ruining people's lives. Just yeah, okay, we'll do it.
Because the people that are getting bombarded by that kind of stuff, it is yeah, we'll do it, whatever. Just because the pressure is so unexpected, and most people don't have the experience of dealing with it to the degree that they could actually stand their ground and hold up to it. Even if they know it's the right thing to do, they're like, I can't. So the only way that you rein in those psychopaths on social media is to just have everybody else go no. Whatever you're shaming this person for, the victim of that kind of stuff, that doesn't matter. You are worse. You as the Karen is worse. You're the person that we're going to direct all of our, disgust and shame towards.
Buy that guy, I'll do this to this guy, whatever.
I think it's this ability, and maybe it's starting to wane a little bit now, but that ability to just raise a stink on social media. They would rather just cave in and give you what you want and take that minor financial hit or whatever, rather than the negative publicity of just bad PR.
Yeah,
and it's the sad reality of it, unfortunately. But yeah, the fact that it can happen to individuals as well, and I think that's what's the more frustrating part of it. People's lives can genuinely be ruined. A company will just take a little financial hit on something and give you what you want. That's fine. They'll move right on from it. But if a person gets publicly raked over the coals like that over something minor, for example that guy's shirt, that could potentially be a thing that comes up every time he applies for a new job anywhere. They'll do a background check and oh right, you were involved in that big controversy, weren't you? I don't know if we need that kind of
exactly. It can be enough for them to be let's just hire someone else. This guy's gotten into trouble
it's not worth it. It's not worth the hassle. And that's the really horrible, sinister aspect of all of this. The ability that people have to just ruin someone else's life just by getting a small but very vocal group of idiots to gang up on them online, and that sticks with them forever. So. Yeah, I really want us to move past that as a culture. I think that's absolutely had its day, and it needs to fuck right off now. And maybe something like this. Like, okay, I know it's like a one example, but the fact that the company hasn't issued any kind of apology, they haven't backtracked on it, they've just carried on and let their share price go up. Hey, that's progress, I guess.
It is a small but noisy amount of people who are saying it, so it probably is better to ignore it. Just
Mhm.
live on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, I mean, you
blueprint
can't
of
really
what
push.
not to do has been done many times at this point.
It really has. Yeah, and I just, I'm looking forward to that point where
The same people who are mad will be mad at someone else in like 2 days.
Yeah.
They'll just forget.
Yeah. They'll get a little bit of rage every time they see Sydney Sweeney in something, though.
Well, it's like rage mongering, right? Like they farm it because it makes them feel something because nothing else is going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can't remember who it was, but like they mentioned like the reason a lot of these people do stuff like this is it gives their lives meaning. You know, probably a lot of them don't really have much going on, and
you need causes. You need something to attack and go after. Living your own life and doing your own thing. It's not necessarily enough. I mean, we all have causes to a degree. We all want to change the world in some way outside of ourselves, but I think there's a healthy way to do that, and it shouldn't be something you're constantly seeking to do all the time.
It's like a drug.
Well, I think
kind
as
of.
well,
Self-righteousness is a particularly dangerous sentiment to have, depending on who has it.
For sure, and I think probably the less people have going on in their day-to-day lives, like whether it's having a family, having friends, having a social life, even having a job in some cases, like the less of that they have to like anchor them to the real world, the more value they place in stuff like this, because it gives them that little dopamine hit and makes them feel important just for a little minute. But that's something.
Always
and I think
brings that quote to mind from Aldous Huxley: to be able to destroy with good conscience, to be able to behave badly and call your bad behavior righteous indignation. This is the height of psychological luxury, the most delicious of moral treats. So basically, if you can create a system that justifies any action and you are the good guy committing to the worst things, it's like, whoa, doesn't that feel good?
All right, I'm starving to death, so I'm gonna call it slightly early today. And let's think. Tomorrow's Tuesday, so I'll be back tomorrow. We're gonna try to play games tomorrow. I'll try not to play ones that are just all nonstop me reading, so my voice gets annihilated. But I'm also trying to get some tea to help with that. That being said, thank you very much for your time and attention. Good luck in all your endeavors.